from the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoak Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with David Craig and Craig Smoak.
Good afternoon on this Friday afternoon. As you see, both of us, Craig Smoak is off to my right. I'm David Craig. Thank you very much for your time today with Cheyenne, Andrew, Rez, Garrett, all around. I think there's also maybe someone else here that I have not been introduced to, but we'll get to that in a moment. We always like to make sure you know who's behind the scenes. But Craig Smoak here in the studio with me. We will get to how, Craig, the Big Ten and Kirk Cignetti basically just has blown the minds of the SEC based on, or fans and media, based on his response from yesterday. And how would you describe him? A combination of any former coaches. First of all, incredibly successful, and yet got a little bit of smartass in him, a little edge to him. And I don't know if it's trolling or just that's who he is.
Well, first of all, hello, everybody. Glad to be with you again. What's up, chat? Hope everybody's having a good Friday. I'm not the best when it comes to making those types of comparisons. So, I don't really pick up on the personality traits of folks and kind of categorize them to then go and pull the file later on. So I don't know. Somebody else out there is probably better at something like that to be able to say, oh, this old coach at Minnesota reminds me of part of Cignetti, or I don't know. He's got some Mike Leach to him, I guess.
Yeah. He's
got some, I don't know what else to him. Like I said, I don't know that I can really dig into the files and think about Bobby Bowden or Steve Spurrier and kind of how they talk. But I guess, kind of that cocky but can back it up Spurrier, but super intelligent and kind of unique Mike Leach. I don't know. Those are a couple of guys that come to mind, but feel free, chat, to chime in and flesh that out a little bit more. But it seems like Groundhog Day, because I swear just yesterday he was getting the SEC fans worked up. But I guess there's more to comb through, because he is a man who, when he's at the mic, does seem to stir a lot of people up for better or worse. And I know we talked a great deal yesterday about the Big Ten shots across the bow at the SEC and how that is rankling a lot of people in that fan base down southeast. But it's all just stirring the pot, and that's what's to be expected during talking season. But it's also adding a little bit of spice as we start to rev this thing up. And you know what? One of the big storylines this year will be whether or not the SEC can shut up Kurt Cignetti, or if
anyone can. Yeah.
Dan Lane's going to be the next one up there talking the way that he is and touting a national championship, or perhaps someone else for that matter. So that's what we're going to be in store for, and talking season certainly delivered over the last month.
So we're going to look back at yesterday in a moment, and then also what, to me, with the comments Cignetti eventually made about the conference and all the whatever, the question he was actually asked, he just didn't start going off on what he said. But first of all, we want to thank you, our audience, for what you bring to the table every day with the growth that we have, and we want to have it more and more every day. We've noticed that there are some new members that are in the chat who are fans of other conferences. That's great. We want you to appreciate, they know that we appreciate you. But also this, here is a graphic. I received this, and Craig, you know about this, just a few weeks ago from millionpodcast.com that ranked this show, your show, among the top 100 sports podcasts in America. This was actually for the month of June. So thank you very much to everybody's involved, and also, of course, to you, our audience, and our great sponsors. So then I got an email from Vivette, I think he got it. He sent me another email. This is what they have us for in July, as the month of July is wrapping up. And they have us at 16. So thank you. So we've been at number 10, and also Craig at number 16. I waited quite a bit because I wanted to make sure I knew exactly how a lot of this is done. And the podcast rankings are based on several key factors, including review count and ratings, relevancy to the specific list or topic, freshness, how often new episodes are released, the total number of episodes, and also quality content regularly, more shares, social sites. Your rank will improve, and that's where they have us at millionpodcast.com.
Yeah, that's cool. It's always cool to be singled out and talked about, and I guess to some degree acknowledged. So yeah, that's cool. Don't normally keep up with stuff like that probably as much as I should, or definitely don't chase it as much as probably a lot of others in the space do. But when it does come around, regardless of how it happens, it's always nice to be acknowledged, like I said. So yeah, appreciate that tip of the cap, and hopefully we can hang around on that list for a while.
And I'm going to put the link up, by the way, to Million Podcast. It's millionpodcast.com/sports-podcast/. So thank you again. And Vinay has been in touch with me, and we appreciate that. And that's for you too. Now, let's get to Kirk Cignetti. He had some good one-liners. No, I'm sorry. We always hear about the best players in college football, Craig. We always hear about, mainly it ends up being about quarterbacks. The On Three guys put together a list of the top 10 most impactful non-quarterbacks for the upcoming college football season. And here is what they have. And we're going to spend a little time on this. And it starts at the top. You could move some of these names around, and you can if you want in the chat. But Jeremiah Smith, the freak wide receiver at Ohio State, tops Pete Nakos in his top 10.
Yeah, I think that's a logical choice. I think he's obviously a really talented player. And, yeah, I think when you're talking about who springs to mind first, Jeremiah Smith, certainly one of those guys. I feel like we've seen different versions of this list throughout the offseason, and those top 3 or 4 are pretty much, I think, unanimous across the board, and just a matter of what ranking you want to put them in. But, yeah, looking through this list 1 through 10 really for the first time in full, it's pretty rock solid. I mean, we're in for a treat, I think, with the quarterback play this year in college football, but there's a lot of other guys like a Colin Simmons, a Kawan Lacey, Cam Coleman at Texas now that I'm super excited to see. But yeah, Jeremiah Smith's an absolute freak show. Ohio State's got huge expectations, which, I mean, that's every year, and every year they seemingly have a stud wide receiver. But yeah, very, very excited to see him lace him up again. And then Leonard Moore was awesome, and rightfully getting some credit as a defender that, edge guys get probably a lot more attention nowadays than they ever have before. But you kind of have to be in a really upper echelon to get attention over the running backs and the wide receivers. So yeah, I think Leonard Moore, that's deserved, and a nice shout. Colin Simmons, a big part of the reason why Texas feels like they're set up on the verge of greatness this year, and they are absolutely loaded with talent. Malachi Toney, one of the most fun players to watch in the country last year. Miami, same thing, feeling like they're going to run it back. And Jordan Seaton, really interesting to see him at LSU with all the changeover now with Kiffin. I think that was a big loss for Colorado. Colorado's kind of moved past it and said, all right, we'll be okay, but that remains to be seen. I think it wasn't like he was so far along developed in his career that he was at his peak and then he left Colorado. So maybe the drop off for them is not significant, but I think the boost for LSU could very well be significant, and that's what they're hoping for. And yeah, I mean, we can kind of go one by one, but a lot of interesting storylines, and Indiana having 2 of these guys, plus Josh Hoover. Yeah, they have some talent still, no matter what they lost last year.
Texas with the edge. You mentioned that those guys get a lot of attention because of the disruption. Colin Simmons last year with 12 sacks to lead the SEC, and a dynamic player. Carter Smith from Indiana. They have also Tyreek Tucker, the defensive tackle. One of the most impressive parts to me about Indiana, a lot of attention went to Mendoza and went to how they could score points, but they also won some defensive struggles, was that offensive line was just built really good. And they have some of those guys coming back, and then Tucker at defensive tackle. Dylan Stewart, I interviewed him at the Super Bowl in New Orleans a couple of years ago. Phenomenal player. Kewan Lacey, the running back. The only running back on this list, you have the wide receivers, you have the edge rushers, and those are the guys that sometimes get a lot of attention. It's pretty cool, as you mentioned, with Leonard Moore, a cornerback, a shutdown player and a hell of a player, the cornerback at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise to see a cornerback that high because when you're elite, I mean, you stand out where no matter what position you're on. But a lot of these lists do seem to focus on offensive skill guys. So, yeah, I think this is a nice mix by Pete and pretty much encapsulates the cream of the crop. I mean, there's other names that are right on the precipice of being worthy of this list. And I'm sure there's somebody looking at their computer or TV screen going, well, what about so-and-so? And
yeah, sure.
And yeah, rightfully so. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of great players out there, but this is a pretty salty top 10. Don't have anything I'd really pick apart outside of hearing somebody else's argument and going, okay, well, yeah, maybe that guy could be in over Tyreek Tucker. But for Indiana to have a couple players, again, is super impressive what they've done there personnel-wise. And then, you know, I think it's pretty glaring that there's no Big 12 player on this list. I mean, if you're looking at it from the conference perspectives, I was seeing how heavy SEC and Big 10 this was, but Notre Dame and Miami shake that up a little bit. But I was trying to think like who would be missing as far as a top 10 player. And I don't think there's anybody obvious out of the Big 12. So that's understandable. But yeah, this is a nice mixture of positions and schools and leagues. And yeah, all these guys I think are going to be super exciting to watch this year. And I think with Texas, I mean, my gosh, they're bursting at the seams with talent. And it does seem like we say that every single year, of course, to the point of it's almost like a running joke when you talk about Texas and their talent level. But yeah, man, between Arch and Colin Simmons and then the addition of Cam Coleman and so on, I'm super excited to see them lace it up and knowing that hey, this is one of those years where it's like Sark better show something, right? I mean, he's already shown quite a bit, but I do feel like there's no, well, they don't have this in place this year. It's like, no, they got pretty much everything you think that they would need. So they seem absolutely primed to make a run. Miami is in really, really good shape. Indiana's acting as though last year was anything but a blip. And yeah, just a lot of confidence, obviously in talking season, everybody's 0-0 and everybody's super excited about their upcoming team. But man, the depth, I think, of the teams and the spread of talent, it's been talked about a lot over the last couple of years on the positives and negatives of the transfer portal and of NIL. But yeah, to see a couple of Indiana players in a top 10 most impactful non-quarterback list and all that. And yeah, and to think that this doesn't include the quarterbacks and there's so many others that could be on this list that, yeah, we're just in for a really fun year with a lot of talent spread across the country and a lot of just really elite players that are making big money, but also going to be making some big plays. So I can't wait.
Yeah. And what I do like, and I saw the chatter, 8 of the 10 are from the SEC or the Big 10. Initially there was a comment that just the P2, but no, Miami with wide receiver Malachi Toney, who was spectacular, right ahead of him, Notre Dame and Leonard Moore. So
that's what we kind of do.
ACC.
That's what we kind of do, though. I mean, when you look, it's like you look at an NFL draft list. I mean, the go-to for SEC fans the last couple of days in defense of Laura Rutledge and her comments and just other similar types of comments is pointing out the NFL draft picks. So I think whenever a list comes out, whether it's NFL draft picks or it's Heisman favorites or it's whatever the case may be, you always kind of do that thing like, where are they all from? And a lot of times, yeah, like nearly the whole top 10 can practically be made up of the Big 10 and the SEC. But there are a couple of interruptions to that at 2 and 3. So yeah, not quite all those two, but pretty close. And I think Notre Dame and Miami could very well be those two teams that prevent either one of those leagues from winning a national title. I don't think there's a lot of other choices. Maybe a Texas Tech. Maybe there's somebody else you want to throw into that mix. I don't think the list is very long, though, of the potential teams to knock those two leagues off the mountaintop. But Notre Dame and Miami, because of guys like Leonard Moore and Malachi Toney, are certainly a part of that small grouping.
Yeah, and John Peterson, who's a Houston fan, I believe, is the one that said there's just P2, and then he did correct himself with Miami and also Notre Dame at 3 and 2. All right, so thank you. I enjoy lists like this, and you're right, there's 20 of them. This is the one that was recently released, and so wanted to I just like the fact that it was outside of the quarterbacks because then you have like 6 of those 10 that might be quarterbacks. I don't know. I just know this, that it's good to see offensive linemen, and it's not just all one position. And I understand why there's a couple of edges. Stewart has to stay healthy. Colin Simmons has been absolutely a freak.
Yeah, no, he's been tremendous. I mean, Texas is going to have a great opportunity this year to go win a bunch of games, and then they're going to probably lose a lot of talent. But I think in this era, they've shown they can replenish pretty well. But yeah, Simmons has been good, and now you expect him to be at his absolute just most optimum level as a college football player headed into this season. And same thing with Arch and same thing with various others on that list from other schools as well. These guys who we've seen for a couple of years that are now getting to those junior, senior years. And you're like, all right, now it's really party time, because now we're getting towards the end of this thing. So I think that's part of the optimism for Texas is they've got not only a lot of talent, but also guys who are coming into that third, fourth year where it's like, all right, now it's natty or bust, right? And you're planning on going out with a bunch of fireworks. So yeah, when you look at that roster, much like you look at Notre Dame's roster or Ohio State's roster or Texas Tech's roster, there's a lot of reason for excitement. What's fun is that here in about a month, a lot of that excitement's going to fizzle in some places. We're going to point and laugh and go, can you believe that? And then some are going to be like, did you see that coming? That's freaking incredible. And I don't know what is going to be what. But I cannot wait to see who is not quite what you expected them to be, and who's maybe exactly what you expected them to be, and then who are the ones that are even better than you could have anticipated, and that's just amongst the thousands of questions that are bubbling up for me right now as we get closer and closer to what I feel like is, I've said this almost every day now, but I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it's just recency bias. I think that's probably some of it, but I think, too, just staying kind of deep into it all year round, as much as there's, like, things that stress you out as far as being a fan of, like, can we hold on to this roster? Is this coach going to leave? Is, like, now that the dust is all settled from the last several months and everything's locked in and it's baking and the oven's about to ding here in about 4 weeks, Bing. It's just it's fun that we're getting ready to eat really good, because there's all sorts of reasons to be super amped up about this year. And those are 10 guys that are part of the reasons why.
I thought that Trey Wallace, when we were having him on earlier this week, when he started talking about, you asked him about the best storylines, and he couldn't stop.
He went for like 25 straight minutes.
He couldn't stop. He sent me a direct message a little bit later on. He's like, man, I'm sorry. He goes, no, that's fine. I mean, because it's great that there's that many that might be a big part of what we do and watch in college football.
Yeah, but I think that just echoed kind of my sentiment of, I mean, just focus on the new coaches. I mean, what's Matt Campbell at Penn State look like? What does Kyle Whittingham at Michigan look like? Those are fascinating changes for those two major programs. Lane Kiffin, I mean, all on his own is like a reality show. Pete Golding full-time. I mean, go up and down the list, and just coaches alone, you have a lot of questions and a lot of fascinating angles. And then you think about the new players, and then you think about just the league dynamics, and you think about just some of the off the field wild card stuff that's not necessarily for everybody. But what is this jersey patch thing going to look like in practice? And just the playoff format being 12 again. And I think Trey started going, and he was one of us, where it's just like you look up and you stop and you go, damn, I've been talking for like 15 minutes, but that's how exciting all of these different stories are that we have in store for this year. And it's going to take some pretty good ball to live up, I think, to the offseason hype. And again, I think it's probably recency bias, but I don't know. I'm also just more excited about this year and I'm excited every year. I'm not one of those grumps that like hates what I cover. Although, there's some days where obviously you're like, I don't want to talk about Congress again. But the sport itself, I love it more than anything. And so I'm excited every year for it. But yeah, for whatever reason, besides recency bias, this 2026 season is shaping up to be just a monster.
Yeah. Man, I can't wait. And I hope that, it's as good as we anticipate. There will be the new storylines and also some that what happened to them.
And I think part of that is probably Indiana winning last year. Just the whole, if they can do it, anybody can do it kind of a thing. And then seeing what Texas Tech did to really kind of position themselves in a different category than they've ever been viewed at, and maybe a category above most, if not all, of the Big 12. And now knowing that they have this make or break, or not break, but this they need to make good on the investment and not just appear in the playoff this year. And we can go team by team, but yeah, there's so many interesting things. Whereas I think if Ohio State wins the title again last year, then we're still excited to the degree that we are. But Indiana winning it really does change things. It really makes everything kind of, you view it differently because you're like, well, this is a different sport than I ever grew up with Indiana's winning titles. So I think that element just encourages everybody to have this extra layer of anticipation about what you could potentially do in the big picture. And look, be realistic. Let me randomly pick a team to piss a fan base off. Okay, UCF's not winning a national title this year, but there's still plenty of excitement. But you feel like, hey, if you do things the right way, maybe you get on the way to being in that trajectory one day if you get the right investments and you get the right coach and all of that. Now, easier said than done. I do think there's a little bit of an overblown, this guy's the next Cignetti, and that guy's they're the next Indiana. I think Indiana might be pretty unique, and Cignetti's pretty unique, but they did inspire a lot of teams to have hope that otherwise they would not have.
Can you imagine if there were all of a sudden the Indiana and what they've done, if there were three other kind of not really a part of the upper tier type country club discussion, if they all of a sudden infiltrated this playoff? Not maybe at one time, but this year there's another one, along with still Indiana, and then maybe there's another one next year. That to me would be a lot of fun to kind of just watch.
It sort of broke the chain, so to speak, where we just got so accustomed to for 25 years it being one of two things. It was either an SEC team, well, I guess three things. One of the SEC teams, take your pick, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, they all have won. Or it was Clemson popping their head in occasionally and doing some damage and interrupting the status quo, normally Saban in Alabama. And then, Ohio State for the most part. And that was kind of it. And there was, somebody that would pop in here and there. That was kind of it. And now you throw in this wild card of a team like Indiana. And yeah, that completely breaks the routine that we were kind of in for so long, where you're like, well, it's going to be this or it's going to be that. It's not going to be anything else. And then it was something way over here that you never would have guessed, even with their playoff appearance the year before. So it gives you a dose of okay, there's a wild card in play here.
It's like when Colorado and Washington were really good, and then they both won a national title. They were still good. Now, Colorado, they weren't Indiana, and neither was Washington. But then when both of them got involved and won national titles, that was Georgia Tech with, oh my God, Bobby. I just went blank on his name. The head
Bobby
coach.
Dodd?
No.
Or not? No.
No. I just went blank on the name. Might not even be Bobby. But so you had some of that. BYU in, what was it, 84, 85, whatever year that was, when they ran the table and won a national title. Did you find it?
Georgia Bobby Dodd's who I think when you say Bobby at Georgia Tech.
It's not him. All right, and let's see if somebody in the chat wants to answer it. Then we're going to get back to a little bit Indiana. Who was? Yeah, no one threw out his name yet. I'll look it up. But so let's go back to yesterday, the 3 days of Big Ten Media Days. Here are a couple of notes. Kirk Cignetti. And I've seen Bobby Ross. Yes, thank you, Craig. Thank God. There's not yet, I don't think oh my God, I'm tired of talking about Indiana because I think it's great for college football. But Kirk Cignetti, here's one of the funny one-liners from yesterday, and it's not the one you think it is, when he said he's tired of being on vacation. It's time to get back to football.
So I'm really excited. I've been on vacation long enough. I'm tired of being bossed around by my wife. I'm ready to boss somebody else around and develop a football team. And it's all about development. Okay, player development, team development, positional development, and developing the intangibles, the mindset, and the identity of your football team.
Now, what I like, the word he used a lot was development. And that's one of the things you hear about what he's done before, where he's won before, is development. And even when you can go and get 18 or 20 guys or 50 to come from one or several programs into your roster, when you have a new coach especially, you have to pick and choose. But you develop the players. And that's a word that every single coach in America, if they were asked about it, being honest, that's a word you have to be able to do. Even more so if you do that, and then you have this depth, and all of a sudden you have a backup right guard, he's pretty good. He's going to get an extra $500,000 somewhere else. He's gone. So then you got to develop also somebody else behind him. It's hard to have depth now in college football.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have depth. I think there's still a lot of development that's going on, although it's certainly not as much volume-wise per school as it used to be, because, yeah, you don't have the third-string tackle that's going to start a couple years for you one day, but there's the guy in front of him, and he can't transfer without sitting out a year, so he's got to stick around, and there's nobody in his DMs luring him with NIL money, so he has no motivation to leave and sit out a year somewhere else. And now all those things are out the window, so, yeah, it's almost impossible to keep together a massive league good and aged and seasoned too deep that's all homegrown, much less what you were able to do, in yesteryear, where you could have maybe a three deep that was pretty good, depending on what program you were looking at. So, yeah, it's a different era, but development is still one of the most important things, and I think he's one of the best ones in the country when it comes to that. And we saw that on display last year. A lot of guys he developed at JMU that carried over, and guys that he's developing in Indiana. One of those I'm excited to see, although the development's a lot shorter than some of the other guys who signed on day one. But I'm really excited to see Josh Hoover and what that looks like. I mean, he was really solid at TCU. Some weekends he looked like the best quarterback in the country, in this region at least. But there were other times where he was a turnover machine. And I'm excited to see what Cignetti does with him to try and limit those negatives while enhancing the positives and filling the shoes of Mendoza. So that's going to be one of the million Indiana storylines that I'm interested in. But yeah, he's a great developer. I will push back. I think there are people that are sick and tired of hearing from Curt Cignetti.
Well, okay.
I can tell you that if they had not won a national title last year, I'd probably be viewing what he says a little bit differently, because I'd be like, all right, this guy again, 2 years in a row, he's talking big game, and yes, he's winning games, but the fact that he can talk it after winning a title, that's what makes it fun, is that he's not just some kook who's just talking trash. He's got results to back it up. He's walking the walk, and that's why I can take it a lot more than just a guy randomly talking without the results. Yeah.
I can't get enough of him right now. Now, there might be a time when that happens, and that can happen when you kind of go to the point where enough. But Indiana was the worst college football program of all time. And what I loved about what they did last year, winning the national title is one thing, but it was after they lost to Notre Dame in the college football playoff in the first game, I think, that was played, and immediately it was like they didn't belong. So-and-so should have been in it. So-and-so should have been in it. And then the next year they come back and bludgeoned not everybody. They had some tight wins, but they win it all. No. So that's where he is, getting back to football. And then Curt Cignetti, along with what Indiana has done, you have heard all throughout the last couple of weeks, really a long time, it's that the SEC are they the best conference in America? Who cares? Are they? The Big Ten right now has the 3 trophies. So here is from SEC Unfiltered, their tweet from earlier today. You're laughing about it?
I'm something about it.
The humbling of Curt Cignetti can't come soon enough. And the responses, and I even listen, there for 20 years, there probably were a lot of people waiting for the SEC to be humbled, even though they still have a phenomenal conference and a lot of the trophies. But even SEC Unfiltered, when I saw that, I said, that made me laugh, because there's a lot of people tired of them that they've won it 3 straight for the Big Ten, and then Cignetti out of nowhere comes in and takes the worst program and runs the table at 16-0 and wins it all. But one of the things about yesterday, when he made the comment about the Big Ten, how deep they are. They don't have some sort of oh my God, pitiful us. No one actually maybe heard the question that led to his answer that was more of edited, just a clip. Here's the question, and eventually how he got around to what was one of the bigger comments from Big Ten Media Days in Chicago.
Nick Shepkowski from OnSI. You mentioned the grind in your opening statement. Iowa, Penn State, they'll kind of speak for themselves. The Oregon game last year, regular season game last year, speaks for themselves. Do you look at that grind? You've done it now twice, getting to the postseason. Is that grind of the Big Ten season a net positive by the time late December, January comes around, or a net negative for where the team is at?
No, I think that's a loaded question. I think your job as a head coach and the assistants is to equip your roster, make it as strong as possible with adequate depth at every position throughout the team. When you play that many games, you're going to get some guys dinged and injured. Things happen. Next man up mentality. The Big Ten is the best league in football, and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Coach Cignetti, thank you so much for your time.
That wraps
Thank
up
you.
his time on the podium at Big Ten Media Days in Chicago. That was the actual question, because we've heard that, again, there's a grind. And, well, yeah, there's a grind in all conferences. You could be talking about the conference with Montana State and Montana, but that was Cignetti's answer. We did not hear the question. I didn't. And also what led up to him finishing it the way he did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it changes the reaction to what he said all that much. I don't think it really changes the view of what he said all that much. But, yeah, there's a little bit more insight into what he was actually answering, and I wouldn't expect anything else from him. Yeah, a second ago when he showed that tweet, I was just like, because it just feels like for the last, I guess because of media days these last 2 weeks, we're just inundated with this Big Ten versus SEC thing. And like I said yesterday, it's now one of the bigger rivalries in the sport. The fact that the Big Ten's won 3 in a row clearly rankles some people, like that SEC account and various other versions of the same kind of idea. And clearly people on the SEC network and people who just, I guess, identify with that brand. Like, yeah, these last 3 years have clearly done a number on them to some degree. And Curt Cignetti is one of the most hated men in the Southeast in a playful way and probably in a serious way in some corners, but that's because he's won. And like I was trying to say a few seconds ago or a few minutes ago, I don't mind him talking the way he's talking now because he's gone out and done it. If he was sitting up there and Indiana had been in the playoff last year and had fallen in the first round, then he's up there talking about this, that, the Big Ten, the other, I'd be like, okay, you've done a great job there and y'all are definitely better than you were. But like, I don't really want to hear you specifically talking about dunking on the SEC or this, that, the other. After what they did, yeah, by all means. Now, yeah, it's totally valid. Otherwise, you're just a coach that's talking like everybody else. But the fact that you went and did what you did, you're absolutely justified in saying anything and everything that you want to. So, yeah, I think that's why Cignetti, as opposed to maybe being a guy who I'm like, all right, well, I think we've heard enough of this guy. Now it's like, oh, no, the fact that he has a title makes me do want to hear more from him. And hear a guy like that with that to back it, as opposed to, yeah, just empty words. So, yeah, he's made a lot of enemies in a short amount of time, but he's also made a lot of fans. He's a hell of a coach. I can't wait to see how they follow it up. And certainly if the Big Ten wins another title, that's going to make some minds explode. And if they don't and the SEC is back in the mountaintop, well, the buildup from the last 3 years is going to be probably unbearable for fans of every other league, because it's going to be like the 2000s and 2010s times 20, because it's been a 3-year drought in being able to brag about being the national champs. So, yeah, the conference thing can kind of get overboard. It's more prevalent now than ever before because of the environment that's been created. But this is a very interesting storyline going into this year of whether the Big Ten or just anybody else for that matter can keep shutting out the SEC, and especially knowing how much it bothers them, It was one thing when it was that 1 year. It's like, oh, it's Ohio State. Okay, well, that's Ohio State. Like, I mean, come on. And it's Michigan. It's like, okay, well, damn, that's 2. But it's Michigan, so like, okay. And then it's Indiana, and it's 3, and now it's like, okay, no, there's a freaking crisis going on now. And if it's 4 and it's any of those 3, or God forbid it's Oregon or USC, then, I mean, there's going to be just meltdowns of epic proportions. But, yeah, I think it's funny to see the banter back and forth. And, yeah, he's been good for college football. I think people like him, characters like him, are ultimately better for the game and make the game more interesting, just like a Mike Leach did, or any other figurehead that you found fascinating or interesting over the years, Spurrier, so on and so forth. He's in line with that. He makes the game more fun. He makes the game better, and he pisses you off while doing it, but that's what the great coaches do a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, it's fun to kind of watch how all this plays out. Now, also emotionally at the Big Ten Media Days, by the way, John Talty from CBS Sports will join us in a moment, and then Joshua Perry from NBC Sports at just after 4. Kyle Whittingham in Michigan, he's been a part of a rivalry that we know has a lot of anger, tension, some respect, and then animosity with Utah, BYU. Now he's a part of Michigan. And there's the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. He was asked about playing against Ohio State, but does he have any personal hatred against Ohio State and head coach Ryan Day?
I don't know what that dynamic was. I know I thought Ryan was a pretty good guy when I met with him, or not met with him, but interacted with him in the Rose Bowl. And based on what, again, Urban has told me about it, I just think that a rivalry can be intense and emotional without the hatred factor. I don't think there's any place for that personally. I think Ryan Day's a good person, and to sit here and say I hate Ryan Day, I'd be making crap up, because that's not true.
All right, so that's one thing. He also was asked about whether Urban Meyer can come watch Michigan practices. His answer was he can come every week but one. And, of course, that would be the week against Ohio State. And then I saw a follow-up on this in regards to the week of Ohio State and Michigan and what Kyle Whittingham had to say.
I want to win that game as badly as anybody in Ann Arbor. And, like I said earlier on, what better scenario would there be is if that game came down to the championship of the Big Ten. That would be outstanding. And so we'll see what happens.
Now, there was, you can imagine, Craig, Michigan fans and Ohio State fans, just like other rivalries as well. Some wanted him to be like more emotional and like more hateful about Ryan Day and Ohio State. That's Kyle Whittingham being honest. But he's been a part of that rivalry with BYU. And even though both schools wanted to beat each other, some hated each other in some ways, he had great respect for Kalani Sitake. But that was something that was kind of a side story yesterday in Chicago.
Well, there's also a really important wrinkle about Kyle Whittingham talking about BYU and Utah that I saw some people in the comments didn't realize. He went to BYU.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that kind of factors into the whole rivalry talk when he actually was coaching at Utah, but he went to BYU. So there's this thought that he hated BYU, and it's like, no, he didn't hate BYU. He, treated them like a rival, and he certainly stoked the flames from time to time, and his athletic director stoked the flames, and his players stoked the flames, and BYU on their side stoked the flames plenty. And that was like maybe the one rivalry outside of, I don't know, Alabama, Auburn. And I don't know, I haven't been up close and personal with every rivalry to like truly have like the hatred levels all organized. But BYU and Utah is about as nasty as it gets.
Yep.
It's not super respectful once the whistle blows and the scoreboard goes dark. It's not a nice rivalry, and it's almost sometimes to the point of like weirdly obsessive of one another in a way, or in hatred of one another. I do think there is respect there, and Sitake and Whittingham did a great job of balancing that. But Kyle Whittingham doesn't hate BYU. He went there, but he does absolutely have firsthand experience in being a part of one of the most heated rivalries in this country that probably doesn't get talked about enough for how much heat there is, and that is BYU Utah. So I think, Michigan, Ohio State's another level as well, but I think for somebody to make that transition, he's making one of the easier transitions, going from what's pretty red hot to what's also red hot or white hot in the Buckeyes and the Wolverines. So, I think he'll be just fine in the long run. He's prepared for battles like that.
All right. We're now joined by John Talty from CBS Sports, who wrote the column on Michael Lombardi and his tenure right now that's obviously fragile at North Carolina, defined by arrogance and ignorance. Great article, John. Appreciate your time to kind of discuss this. We've mentioned the story, and I know there's still more to it, but man, this is just like falling through this big hole in the ground that everyone was expecting at some point he would step in it. There doesn't seem to be very many people that have much respect for him. Were you shocked by that?
I don't know if I'm shocked by it because I feel like I've been hearing it from the moment he got hired. And, some of that can be jealousy, right? He's the highest paid general manager, in college football at 1.5 million. So that, sometimes you have to take it with a grain of salt. But, from the moment he got hired, I think there was surprise from people that I talked to that this guy who's been out of football for essentially the last decade would be getting such a prominent role, especially with Bill Belichick not having a lot of college experience, having no college experience himself. His dad obviously was a college coach, but he had not been that, he would trust someone like Lombardi who had not been in college football since the 80s at UNLV. So that kind of where it stems from. But really from the moment he got there, I've heard from whether it's agents, whether who represent players, talked to coaching agents who have coaches on that UNC staff. I've talked to people on part of that UNC staff, and the feedback has been universally bad about Mike Lombardi. There's just a lot of people who just feel like he kind of rubs them the wrong way. There's an arrogance, the way he talks to people that some people have described as kind of condescending to me. Clearly he has Bill Belichick's trust, but it doesn't seem like there have been many other fans in that building when it comes to Mike Lombardi. And I think just the kind of the piling on we've seen this week since it came out that he was on leave is kind of unprecedented in some ways. Like usually people kind of keep to themselves and don't, look to dunk on people to that level. But I mean, I had a call earlier today with a GM who was dunking on Lombardi to me and was sharing some additional things. I mean, I heard from a lot of people in the space in the last couple of days about Lombardi, and none of it's been positive.
What were your expectations when you first heard the Bill Belichick to North Carolina news? I think there was a split of like, this is an awful idea. And then some like, oh, they're really going and going for something big. And how much more appetite do you think North Carolina has for this experiment at this point?
I'll admit that I was kind of a believer that it could work. Some of that I think is having the unfortunate reality of being a New York Jets fan. So I've seen Belichick destroy the Jets my entire life, and also resign after 2 days as a Jets head coach. So I've just seen the Belichick mastery for so many years that compared to some of the things that I've seen in the ACC over the years, I thought, well, if he can get the players there, I believe in his, coaching acumen and his X's and O's. But that's been part of the problem is that there's just not the talent that you need. And I think Belichick, Lombardi, others have made mistakes in how they've put together that roster. And there was nobody that was NFL caliber last year. There's not a lot of NFL talent this year from people that I've talked to. And so it doesn't bode particularly well moving forward. So I think this is probably one of the more fascinating programs to watch this season. Of course, it's the Belichick factor, but we saw a very active coaching cycle a year ago. This one has the potential to be active again, but maybe not as many bold-faced names. Of course, you have Mike Norvell at Florida State, Dave Aranda at Baylor, Mike Loxley at Maryland. But I don't know that those are necessarily A-list names. But Belichick and UNC is going to bear watching as to what is he able to do this year in terms of on-field improvements, if there are any, and if it goes similar to how it did a year ago, in which they went 4-8. Is UNC committed to seeing this out, or is there some sort of mutual parting of ways? I know certainly there's people who are keeping an eye on that situation across the college football space.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about how much longer it goes as well. Do you expect Lombardi to ever be back inside the program at North Carolina?
I wouldn't say that I've heard a lot of optimism about that. You never say never. I mean, Lombardi is a survivor. I don't think anybody thought Mike Lombardi was ever going to be a GM of a college football program. So you never know what can happen. But I think there's a couple factors, I think, in place here. One, the fact that this has become public. UNC's tried to kind of deflect, well, this is a private personnel investigation, but the fact that the investigation is public whatsoever does not bode particularly well for Michael Lombardi. And I think also just the fact that things are not going well. If this was an 11-1 UNC program and everyone's happy and loving what's happening, maybe some things get cleaned up and everybody can get calmed down when there's already issues and there's already kind of been scuttlebutt within the program and outside of it about this maybe not being a great fit. Sometimes it makes you think, well, maybe this is just an easy opportunity for them to move on and go a different direction. So we'll see. I mean, they're the other day they said they want an expedited investigation. We'll see how long that actually takes. But at least from just people outside of UNC that I've talked to in the last couple of days, I think most of them are of the belief that he's probably not coming back. But we'll see, and we'll see what the investigation turns up.
Here are some of the quotes. I'm not sure, Cheyenne, if you could put these up, but here are some of the quotes from inside your article. For those who haven't read it yet, and you should, it's on CBS Sports. The next good word I hear about Lombardi will be the first one, says an agent familiar with the situation at North Carolina. I can't remember a disaster quite like it. That's one. Here's another one. Scouting in the NFL is a little bit different than scouting 17-year-old high school kids in rural North Carolina. All these NFL guys look at college football now and they think it's like the NFL, which it is in many ways, but it's not. And then there's also what Lombardi said that you had him quoting Talty, John Talty. I've lived this life in fairness for those other coaches. They really never have, and on and on and on. We used to say this at the Raiders all the time, the NFL Raiders. The jungle is never dangerous if you know the trails. We know these trails. Well, they've taken the wrong split in the road. And then finally, I don't mean to prey on his downfall or anything, but the guy just does a blank job and doesn't deserve the title NIL agent who has negotiated contracts with Lombardi. He is hurting that program. Those are some damning quotes, John, from different type of people. And then what he quoted himself, his own quotes came back to kind of bite him in the ass.
They did, and I think it speaks to what people have said, that they feel like he's arrogant. And listen, when I did that story a year ago on Lombardi, there were two things that I was interested in. One, trying to talk to people who have known him, been around him, worked with him, to try to understand, why does Bill Belichick trust this guy so much? Because even before he got to UNC, Lombardi had a mixed reputation. There were some people who liked him. He had, cultivated a media career for the last decade or so. Others thought, bit of a blowhard, strong opinions that maybe weren't based in facts. So I was kind of curious from the get-go. And then, I've never really dealt with Lombardi. And so when we talked, he's an interesting guy to talk to. I found the conversation entertaining. He's, kind of a Renaissance man. He's clearly very well-read. I mean, you'd ask him a question and he'd quote 5 different people. He'd quote Neil Simon, and he'd quote a poet, and then he'd quote Bill Parcells. I mean, he's got all these different things that made it an interesting conversation, but I could also see, again, how that could rub people the wrong way. And I just think that's just what it is. And ultimately, I think there's one of the things that I've seen over the last couple of years is that you have these college personnel people that have worked their way up their ranks. And I think they have some issue with these guys coming from the NFL who have never kind of, quote unquote, put their time in the college football space and just assuming that they know everything. And that's something that I've heard as a criticism about how UNC operates. And you guys coaches have pointed out to me, you're still dealing with parents at the college level. You're still dealing with kids who might be late for a class at the college level. There's just all these little things that happen at the college level that you don't have to deal with at the NFL level. And so it's never been closer to the NFL, but that doesn't mean that it is close to the NFL, is something that I've heard over and over again. And I think that you're seeing some of the guys who have come from the NFL ranks realize that yes, there's some things that we might have unique experience in when it comes to negotiating contracts and things like that. But there's still a lot of things that are very different about college football compared to the NFL.
John, any idea of how the folks in Chapel Hill feel like this team actually is going to look this year? I mean, given the backdrop, I feel like all of the North Carolina stuff I've read this offseason has to do with off the field, whether it's Mike Lombardi or Jordan Hudson or Bill Belichick, and it's very little about the team itself. Did you even get a sense of what the expectations are there?
I can tell you outside observers are not particularly bullish on that program. And that includes, people that have scouted them at the NFL level and also, college people that I've talked to that have, might be playing UNC this season that have looked into their roster and what they have. I was talking to someone earlier who felt like they've really overpaid for some players relative to their actual skill sets in this, most recent portal period. So there's not a lot of optimism, I would say. Again, last year was pretty disappointing. I admittedly did not think that they were going to go 4-8. I was thinking 6-6 or so, maybe, and then build off of that the following year. That obviously didn't happen, and that team looked, just really lackluster in a lot of different ways. They've made some pretty big changes on the coaching staff side of things. I think there's a lot of curiosity as to what Bobby Petrino can bring to the table, and also just how he and Bill Belichick kind of coexist with each other. But it is not a program that I think people view as a contender in the ACC this year. There's not the level of talent that you would expect there to be. I mean, frankly, Mac Brown had more talent than what we've seen so far at Bill Belichick, which again, has been a surprise to me. I did think that they'd be a little bit better than what we've seen so far.
Was one of the notes in your article that they had nobody drafted? You would just think that somebody that would, like, I don't know, that because of Belichick's history that he would have somebody that he could prop up there to get drafted. Is that one of the notes I remember?
Yeah, and I think that's what I think has been frankly surprising, and that's one of the things that I've talked to people about as well in the last couple of weeks. Like, I think there is this, again, arrogance, might be other words to describe it, but I think there was this belief that people really were going to go out of their way to play for Bill Belichick. And I understand it to some extent. I mean, I wrote a book about Nick Saban and, those first couple of years of NIL at Alabama, like Alabama was getting the quote unquote Saban discount where guys were willing to take less to come to Alabama to try to play for Nick Saban because they believed in his ability to get them to the next level. I think that's what the expectation was when Bill Belichick got to UNC. And he certainly has tried to sell it, whether it's Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. I mean, they're trying to sell the NFL experience. They, have been criticized for it, but they talked about being the 33rd NFL team. And it just has not translated really at all. We have not seen them become a premier destination for transfer players. I was frankly expecting that to happen. Like, hey, you've only got 1 year. Why not play for Bill Belichick, knowing what he's been able to do? It just has not translated at all. And so it's been pretty surprising. And people will tell you that this team does not have a lot of NFL caliber talent on it as of right now. They might have a guy or two drafted this upcoming NFL draft, but there's not a lot of clear cut, yep, that's a first round type guy. And again, if you remember under Mac Brown, they did have that. They had Drake May. They had, especially offensively, some really talented guys go on and have had success in the NFL. And that has not happened under Bill Belichick so far. And we'll see if that can improve. But the challenge, I think, guys, from the get-go was always that there was not a lot of a long runway here. I mean, it's not like he's a 45-year-old guy. I mean, you knew that there was a limited runway with Belichick. And so the fact that the first year was such a disaster, the fact that this is now hanging over the second year just doesn't bode well for Belichick's ability to get this thing back on track and really have the level of success that they thought they were going to get by moving off of Mac Brown and basically doubling the amount of money they're paying to Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most interesting stories in a ocean of interesting stories, I feel like, heading into this year. And one of those other really interesting stories, you actually have a book coming out. Is that right?
Yeah.
On Lane Kiffin. Wanted to ask you about that before we let you go. I mean, no shortage of material, I feel like, John. Like, kind of take us into the world of writing about Lane Kiffin and what a time to be doing so.
It was never boring, I'll say that. He is a fascinating guy. I think he has had a one-of-one college coaching career. He is now the first coach in SEC history to have coached 3 different programs in the SEC as the head coach. The fact that he's only 51 years old and has already been the Ole Miss head coach, been Tennessee, now LSU, the Raiders, USC. It's really unbelievable, frankly. And so it was a lot of fun to write. I mean, trying to put all the stuff that swirls around Lane Kiffin into context was a little tricky at times. But, I really wanted to kind of get to the bottom of like who this guy really is and why does he do some of the things that he does. I think that Lane has worked very hard to cultivate a certain kind of personality or persona that the media has picked up on. And I give him full credit for doing that. But I've always felt like there was more beneath that surface. And I think doing a book in which you get to talk to, hundreds of people really allowed me, I think, to get closer, at least to the truth of who Lane Kiffin really is. And I think if you're at all interested or fascinated by like, what's Lane Kiffin's deal? Why does he do the things he does? Some of the behind the scenes stories of Tennessee and Nick Saban and Alabama and USC and the Raiders and all that, I think people will be really interested by what's in this book and hopefully come away with a greater understanding of who Lane Kiffin really is.
Yeah, it's been something to watch his career. And, he's been derailed. And then what he did at Ole Miss was phenomenal. And that drama last year. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time. Great story on Lombardi. And also good luck with the book. When does it come out? No, that's okay. I didn't get the point when it comes out. We'll get that to you. And again, John Talty, CBS Sports. We break here. Joshua Perry, NBC Sports. He will join us, former Ohio State linebacker. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends is their slogan. Whether you're in the market for a new or a pre-owned vehicle, here are some of the specials they have available. One is the Step It Up 2022 Mercedes-Benz C300. Only 41,000 miles for just $29,990. There's a 2025 Subaru Legacy Sport, 13,000 miles for $29,995. Also, every qualifying pre-owned vehicle comes with the Alan Samuels 30-day pre-owned promise. In other words, if you decide you'd rather have another qualifying pre-owned vehicle, you can, at equal or same value, equal value or even a little bit less, you get another 30 days to make sure that's what you want. Shop anytime. David Gray runs the sales department with a bunch of great men and women who will help you find the vehicle you want. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager that makes it all go. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340, and east of 84 in Waco.
Dream Texas Weather calls for Ray Broker, your Lennox premier dealer. Sign up for our year-round comfort plan and keep your home the perfect temperature no matter what the forecast is. Call or visit raybroker.com now. Ray Broker, your air conditioning and heating specialist.
Make this the summer event at Alan Samuels in Waco. Get behind the wheel of an iconic new Dodge Charger RT and score $5,000 in savings. First responders and military members get an extra $500 bonus. Alan Samuels Dodge.
Come by, let's be friends.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB, your bank for life, takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
If you need legal advice on medical malpractice or personal injury, 18-wheeler accidents, or criminal, probate, and estate planning and transactional work, including private equity acquisitions, buying and selling businesses, and employment agreements, please contact David Dumas at the David Dumas Law Firm at daviddumaslawfirm.com. This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
And hello. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to 365 Sports, Craig and David Smoak. And
Do we have Joshua ready on? Yes, we do. All right. Craig, thank you for opening up the segment. Good afternoon, 4 o'clock hour, 365 Sports. And we're now joined by Joshua Perry, NBC Sports, with us. Joined us about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And my goodness, Mr. Perry, how much fun was it in Chicago for the last 3 days with Big Ten Media Days and kind of glowing with pride right now with what they've done?
It was a blast. I'll tell you, I used to live in Chicago for 3 years. I moved back to Ohio last year. So I miss being in the city first and foremost. Great city to host the event. You talk about the pride in there. I mean, immediately they open up the press conference. Tony Petitti makes his remarks to all the media members that are there, and he's standing next to 3 national championship trophies. And just about every coach that got up there made some sort of comment about how the Big Ten is at the top of college football. It's the best conference. I know that's been a heavy debate, but the people really feel it within the conference. And I think that they're pretty confident about the prospects of some of the top teams this year to be able to win it all once again. So certainly enjoyed it. Definitely some interesting nuggets. It was great to see some of the new coaches that are joining the conference. Pat Fitzgerald circling back as a member of the conference now. And then, of course, hearing from, the Dan Lannings and the Ryan Days of the world and Curt Cignetti, of course, about how they feel about their squads.
So, Josh, I bring this up like every time we talk, just really in general, but how many times have you had to pinch yourself since Indiana won a title to see if it's actually real or not? And I do think that Cignetti being up there this year, the way he talks could kind of get old, even if he were to win a lot of games. But now that he's done what he's done, I mean, what can you say other than he's talked the talk, but now he's walked the walk as well?
Yeah, I mean, he's earned the right. He's absolutely earned the right to say whatever he wants to say. It's interesting. I was actually arguing with one of my former teammates today. I'm half joking, I'm half not, but Curt Cignetti might be the greatest coach that ever put on a whistle, right? To turn Indiana around in such a short time. I know the NIL landscape and transfer portal, you can do that, but he brought guys that he mostly identified at JMU, brought them into the Big Ten, was able to run through the conference this year, saw what he did to the second place team in the SEC in Alabama, the way he dismantled them in the college football playoff. So you've got a coach who's lost 2 games at Indiana since he's gotten there, losses to Ohio State and Notre Dame, who played in the national championship in the year where they had those losses to him. Undefeated national champs, had a Heisman Trophy quarterback, #1 overall pick. The guy is amazing. And the funny thing about it is he is actually enjoying what he did a year ago, even though he's looking forward to this coming season, obviously putting in the work. He has taken the time to really appreciate the fact that he is the national championship winning coach. When I played for Urban Meyer, and you'd heard the Florida story. It's probably the best one to pull up, but wins the national championship at Florida, immediately gets on the phone and starts calling recruits, right? He could not turn it off, could not enjoy it. At Ohio State, we won it, and immediately he was like feeling the pressure of, can we do it again next year? And I don't think Sig's worried about that. Obviously, he knows he's going to have a competitive squad, but I think he actually is human enough, even though he kind of looks a little bit callous and a little bit like a robot. He's human enough to understand the gravity of what he just did and to take pride and enjoyment out of it.
I thought he talked about he's ready to get back to football because his wife keeps telling him what to do, but I thought one of the other parts that was interesting to me was when on some podcasts they asked, so now the target's a lot bigger on your back. He goes, I just got a bigger gun. He's got those quips, and he's got a lot of realness to him and smart ass too. And he's got the skins on the wall.
Listen, and he said he's got a bigger gun. I fully agree with that. The NIL people have come out the woodwork, and I know some people are like, oh, Mark Cuban helped him build the championship. He kind of didn't, right? Like Mark Cuban was a little bit late to get on the train. Like he was around for the end of last year, but he did some things in the offseason, but he was a little bit tepid on what his commitments were going to be. He's been a guy who's traditionally contributed to other parts of the university. Now he's all in. So they definitely have a bigger gun that way. Their profile is raised. They won a recruiting battle this summer for a wide receiver, #1 wide receiver in the country, LSU, Ohio State, Texas, all the schools that would be in the hunt. And he's an Indiana kid, but he stays at home and goes to Indiana. They've never done that before. So first off, I think the target was always on his back, because the first time we ever really heard from him was Google me, and Purdue sucks and so does Michigan and Ohio State. But now he's won the championship. He's still himself. He's giving you the quotes. He understands what he's up against. I don't think it's ever bothered him.
Josh, it's weird. I was just thinking about I was just doing a thing on the Big Ten and kind of wrapping it up over media days, and I realized at one point I was like, man, we didn't really hear much about Nebraska, and it feels like the last couple of years there's been a drum beating and there's been some writing about Matt Rule and the rebuild and all this, and there's just none of that going on right now, at least that I see over in this way. Is that a good thing for Nebraska, that there's not a lot of talk about them, or how do you view that?
I think it's twofold. I think it is positive that there isn't this maybe unrealistic expectation of what they're going to be this year. Like I think a lot of people understand they need to get better, but nobody's talking about like, can he lift them back to their old glory? Like that stuff is done right now. So I do think that's a positive there. I listened in on one of the interviews we did at NBC, and he talked about a couple of things. The offensive and defensive lines he talked about extensively, and I think he understands that you need to be really good, especially in the Big Ten, to compete nationally. You have to be really good at those positions. You watch what Michigan was when they won it in Ohio State, and you watch what Indiana was on the lines of scrimmage last year, what Georgia has always been on the lines of scrimmage with Kirby. He knows that needs to get better. But then there was this other part that really intrigued me, where he was like, you know, if I could draw it up, our first play we would call would be scramble drill in a game, and just kind of do the backyard football thing. Because there's not a time where you can have a guy run vertical and then out and then back in and then up vertical again. He's got an athletic quarterback that he believes in. And I think that he's trying to unlock, maybe with some of his skill guys, this mentality of like, just go out and make plays. Like everything doesn't have to be so on script and so rigid all the time, and football can be fun. And so there are these things that are at odds. It's like he's trying to get his skill guys to have fun while also having a bunch of tough guys up front, which Nebraska had been known for a very long time. So they're kind of fading in terms of people talking about them. I think that can be a positive, and ultimately, if they start to win some games, people will be talking about them again.
He mentioned, one thing he did mention was they really put together what looks like a pretty beefy but also fairly good offensive line. They just haven't been very good on either of the lines. No. Most of the time, both of them. And his offensive line is pretty large. Now, who knows? We'll see when we get there. It's what was the last time you saw them just go out and beat somebody, Joshua?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it feels like. Every game they've been in has been close, win or loss, right? Like there's not been a game where you just watched them and you said that they were the most imposing team on the field. In to that point, we've seen Iowa do it, who's kind of in that same mold of not top tier in the country, but respectable. We've seen at times where Minnesota has done that, where they've beat people up on the lines of scrimmage. And Matt Rule is a guy who, like that's what he did. He's coached everywhere in football as a position coach, but the thing that he loves the most is offensive line and defensive line. So I know it probably bothers him to that point that they haven't really gone out there and just played bully ball against somebody.
You mentioned earlier Pat Fitzgerald being one of those new faces. I think it's fascinating. Chesney at UCLA now, Campbell at Penn State, and then Whittingham taking over at Michigan. Maybe your answer is still Pat Fitzgerald, but what kind of jumps out to you or is of most interest as far as the new faces in this league go?
I think Chesney was the most impressive. Like if you were to pick a guy who, won the media over as a new coach, I think he was it. He has a great plan. He has great energy. His players spoke glowingly about him. He's also a guy that comes in with success at lower levels in multiple spots. And I think a lot of people are looking at the Cignetti mold once again of a guy who's had success at lower levels and taking a step up. I think there's some confidence there. I love the way he talked about, building his team and building that culture and that mentality, and bringing fun back to that program too. Losing is not a fun thing. He wants to bring fun back. But he feels like the right guy to be able to lift that program and that roster, but also do the outreach at UCLA necessary to get the fans back on board, get the boosters really involved. Whittingham is somebody who I interviewed one-on-one at media days, and we've known him for a long time. Very impressive coach, tough, gritty guy, just like regular to talk to, kind of no nonsense, but not like blow you off kind of coach. And so it was refreshing to kind of see an adult in the room there at the University of Michigan, with what they've gone through the last few years. I think it was spot on to hire a guy like that. And I'm excited to see what he can do. Like, it's the question is, he hasn't had to start over in so long. So kind of what are these first couple of years like, getting into a new place and building from scratch? But he's a hell of a ball coach, man. And he has all of the things that a Michigan coach should have. He's a ball guy. He wants to be tough. He knows what it means to win on the lines of scrimmage. He knows what it means to run the football. He's not scared of the elements. And I think it's just a really good fit.
Joshua, he made a comment about the strength or weight room. When he arrived, he saw all these good-looking athletes, but that he was surprised by perhaps the amount of weight that they weren't able to lift. How can that happen at Michigan? How can that happen really? I always saw, some strength and conditioning coaches can motivate players better than others, but how does that happen?
So there are two things that could have occurred there. Is number one, they lost Ben Herbert, who was a strength and conditioning coach when Michigan went on that run of Big Ten championships and eventually won the national championship. He left to go with Harbaugh. He was phenomenal. He had the strength and conditioning program locked down, dialed in. He was one of the best in the country. And so you replace him with somebody who came from his lineage but isn't him. And maybe some of the programming changes. And there are rumors floating that, they didn't bench press very much. And so, they just weren't lifting the same. So maybe they lost some of the sauce there on the strength and conditioning. There's also a school of thought that your ability to bench press a lot and squat a lot isn't that important if you have functional strength and if you have if your muscles can handle time under tension in an athletic setting, right? And so there's part of me that is a little bit taken aback that you would walk into a Michigan weight room and not be impressed by the numbers. But there's this other part of me where the new age people would say the numbers are less important right now if you can go out there and functionally just whoop somebody's ass. Yeah. And so I'm curious which one it was more of. Was it more of the fact that, maybe they did get pushed around a little bit too much last year and it reflects in the numbers, or is it just the fact that their mentality towards strength and conditioning was less about the traditional, compound lifts and more about doing some of the functional lifting?
How are you feeling about the Buckeyes? I mean, every year it's natty or bust, right? I mean, the expectations are so sky high, so that never really changes. But Julian saying looks like he could be pretty special, and obviously there's a lot of other talent around him. How are you feeling about what they're walking into? And I guess what are the questions for Ohio State folks when they think about this team this year?
I talked to Julian. He's an awesome guy. He's such a good dude. He doesn't want to say anything wrong and putting his team in a bad spot. So not the best player to interview, but a good guy to catch up with and see. I feel like he's gotten a little bit of disrespect this offseason just nationally. It feels like everybody's looking at the shiny toys and not the guy who was in New York as a Heisman finalist last year. So I think that's put a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's going to have to get better with leadership. He's going to have to get better with grit. Some of the tough moments there at the end of the year, the Big Ten championship and the playoff left a little bit to be desired. But he's throwing to the best player in America in Jeremiah Smith. The guy's an alien. Every time I see him, I feel like he's just bigger, but everybody says he's also faster too. I don't know how that happens. I think I'm actually, and maybe this is me being critical with my Ohio State Buckeye glasses on, I think I'm a little bit lower on Ohio State than most of the other people are nationally. I mentioned Julian being back. It's huge. And Jeremiah, but then you look beyond Jeremiah, there's not a strong number two option like they've had in a lot of the previous years. And so there's a question there about who's going to get the touches after him and what that rotation is going to look like. Offensive line has to improve from the way they finished last year. Top two running backs were out in spring, and those are both young players, so they've got to continue to develop. And then you look at the defense, like 8 starters that they've got to replace. They're just general questions. Talented roster. I think everybody has a level of trust in Ryan Day that he can get them prepared. But as you start to look at the way things line up, they've got Texas early on. They got to go at Indiana. They got to go at USC. I think they're playing at Kinnick too, which is a tough place to play, playing at Iowa. They've got Oregon, they've got Michigan, right? So like it's not an easy schedule, and they're going to have to be good pretty early on.
So it's impossible to cover all the bases when we have these monster leagues with 16, 18 teams. Like, we'd have to go 2 hours to talk about everybody. But the team that seems like a glaring omission so far is the Oregon Ducks that we haven't touched on. How much are you buying that maybe they can be the next team to win their first natty and break through that proverbial glass ceiling?
Well, I think that, if you're looking at the recent history of champions, right? Like, it feels like there's going to be a different champion, and it's going to come from the Big Ten. And so if that's the case, it feels like it'd be Oregon's time. Dante Moore coming back was huge. And I mean, not only is he a great player, very, very mature player too. And I think maturity has won in college football over the last few seasons. So having that as kind of your anchor point is big. But they're returning a lot of guys who played last year that weren't very veteran and are becoming veterans. So I like the experience that they have. Certainly, the big question to me has shifted from, can Dan Lanning build a program? Can he recruit? Can he get the roster the way it needs to be? To, can Dan Lanning break through in the critical moments? He's had a big win when he beat Ohio State at home. That was huge. The year Ohio State won the title, but then OSU turns around the Rose Bowl, and kicks her behind. Early on in his tenure, he had a terrible loss to Georgia. And you look at how they went out against Indiana in the college football playoff, and lost to Indiana at home regular season. You can pick some of the big moments. It's starting to become, and I don't want to say this to be too disparaging, because I think James Franklin is a good ball coach. Winning 10 games a year is hard, but it's starting to feel a little bit like James Franklin in the sense that he'll consistently win you the games he needs to win, but you're still waiting for that breakthrough. So I think there's a little pressure on Dan Lanning because he's got the financial backing, and he has the roster in a great spot. He's done a phenomenal job with that, to figure out how to get that team over the hump. And he's dangerous if he figures that out. Like, I mean, his roster is as good as anybody in college football, right? Like, if he does that, they're winning a title.
I want to go back. One of the receivers now that's at Ohio State is Devin McCune.
Yeah.
He was at UTSA.
Yep.
He can go. And I say that because he's a high school kid out of Texas. He's from Jacksonville, Texas, but he played for Jeff Traylor at UTSA. Yep. And I wonder, as a transfer, if someone like that may sneak in and be, not sneak in, but maybe he can help fit that one little maybe pocket you were talking about at wide receiver behind Jeremiah Smith.
So I watched McEwen. I'm a college football sicko, so I'm watching all of these games throughout the week, and so I end up watching UTSA. And I was doing a different show years ago and had Traylor on there, and he was phenomenal to talk to, just a lot of fun to interact with, and so kind of became one of my guys that I was looking out for. Well, I was watching him, and I'm like, this guy can fly. And then I saw the Buckeyes got him out of the transfer portal, and I think it really does fit. Because for all of the things Jeremiah does well, being like a top end, over the top, like, just run a 9 route down the field, it doesn't feel like he's got like that burner from the start of the route up to the end. And watching McEwen, it's like he's got a lot of juice there. So I think it complements well. He's going to have an opportunity. Kyle Parker is a wide receiver on the roster as well, who came over from LSU with Cortez Hankton, who's the new wide receiver coach. And I think he's going to have his opportunities as well. It's just about the guy who becomes consistent early on is going to get the bulk of the catches after Jeremiah.
Joshua, the NBC Sports, they do a lot of Notre Dame games, and there's some Big Ten games. Do you feel like that they're going to eventually be even more involved in college football moving forward?
It's a really intriguing philosophical question. I think there's part of where we're at in terms of the Big Ten contract, where we will never have the game of the week, right? Like Fox has that locked down. And so I think we're kind of dependent on this middle class of the Big Ten that's been up for debate, where all the SEC coaches say that they're better there. We're dependent on them, like, for our numbers a little bit. And I think this year it's actually going to be better. I have a lot of belief in some of the teams to be able to rise and be more competitive. And obviously they love Notre Dame. Sure. When the landscape shifts in a few years and media rights deals come up, I don't know. I think there would be some interest. Like, could you get down south and maybe have a little bit of footprint with some of the teams down there? NBC is in a little bit of everything right now. It's been Sunday night football forever, but they've got NBA and they've got Major League Baseball and they've got WNBA and obviously the Olympics, and they're doing swimming right now. So it would never be out of the question. We love sports. Yeah, you wonder, because if the college football playoff expands, most everyone thinks that Fox might get a lot of those games, but that gives opportunity to TNT, NBC, and so much more. Hey, appreciate you. Good stuff as always, Joshua. Thanks for your time and appreciate your time. Have a great weekend. I appreciate joining you guys. It's a fun show. Take care, and we'll talk soon. Yes, sir. I hope we do. Joshua Perry, NBC Sports, former national champion at Ohio State, the Ohio State University. When we come back, there's a few other things to get to. In fact, Ralph Rousseau has a pretty interesting analogy on how you compare that Protect College Sports Act. Remember that? That's dead, the deadline. And then Trey Wallace just sent me a nugget about it. We'll just touch on that for a little bit. But also, Taysom Hill, one of the great players in BYU history and his NFL career. A note about that, David Craig Smoak, we appreciate your time. This is 365 Sports. Home Place Interiors offers everything you need to dress up your home, and that means one-of-a-kind area rugs to custom window treatments, and they can help you put the finishing touches on any space and where you live or even in your office. Home Place Interiors has been around quite a long time, over 20 plus years. Selena, Stephanie now own the company. John Proctor, who started it 20 plus years ago, is also there to give his insight, knowledge, and history on the rug business. Rug season is every day at Home Place Interiors. Largest selection of area rugs in town. Stop by to check out their inventory. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I went by and saw John. I played golf with him. He was on the golf trip to Utah, and he showed me around what they have as far as the gorgeous rugs if you want them. And then, of course, they could also put some together, design one that you like as well. Home Place Interiors can help you with your flooring and your carpet needs. Wood, tile, carpet, and vinyl plank flooring. And their knowledgeable staff is there to help you create what you want. The looks, the colors, the feel to spice up where you live, whether it's a condo, a home, or your office. 5-star reviews throughout their website. It is homeplaceinteriorstx.com, 523 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Celebrate American value and American quality during the Red, White, and Blue sales event at Richard Car. You want a Richard Car GMC? Get your Sierra now and save $13,000 or more on every truck in stock with trade-in. Save $14,000 on a 2026 GMC Sierra SLE Crew Cab. Or save $13,500 on a 2026 GMC Sierra Pro, now under $29,000. Drive American quality and get American savings during the Red, White, and Blue sales event at Richard Car.
Richard Car, they have the truck for you.
Marco's only uses premium toppings, which means your pizza isn't just flavorful, it's mushroom-full, or sausage-full, or pepperoni-full. And you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas from the place named America's favorite pizza chain starting at $8.99 every day, only at Marco's.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
We have stayed away from what is supposed to be pretty much a dead issue, but as we've learned, nothing when it comes to deadlines, and Congress seems to ever be an actual deadline. I think there are some budget decisions, etc. But Ralph Rousseau, who's been on this show many times, here is his analogy on the Protect College Sports Act, explained in a couple of different tweets. You go to a crowded restaurant and decide to wait an hour for a table. After 75 minutes, you're still waiting, but it could be any second, and you have already waited so long, you just have to write it out. Then, remember, you then go 90 minutes waiting, and you're even more frustrated, but now you have to wait it out because it'll take 15 minutes to go someplace else. You'll probably have to wait there. The alternative is going home hungry. I feel like that's what the PCA or the PCSA negotiations really are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess, and it's not going the way that Cody Campbell wanted. I could tell by the way he popped off at a politician earlier this afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah, he's man, he really does not care, does he? Like he's so super powered by the money and the influence that he's really not afraid to go at anybody's neck anymore. And I think that probably gets him into some trouble, but also it's part of the deal. And so yeah, he's swiping at politicians on Twitter and telling them to go read the bill rather than crowing and regurgitating this vague language that their assistant or their handlers gave to them. And that's valid. I mean, you got a politician who's popping off about something that they clearly haven't even read at this point and trying to make a statement about it. And when you spend as much time and money as he has in trying to get said thing accepted and acknowledged, to see somebody who clearly is not even really paying all that much attention to an issue that's very important to you, I'd probably be pissed too. And I'd probably pop off if I was, a billionaire able to do that as well. But yeah, I saw that little dust up earlier today. And yeah, it's a tired topic. It is something that just feels like we've been sitting in a waiting room for like 4 hours, and we're like, no, the meal's coming. Just wait. We got to just change the ingredients around a little bit, or whatever. You want to go with Ralph's example there. That's fine. It's just, it's not an interesting story at this point, because it's just more of the same, nothing actually happening after months and dozens of articles and hundreds of tweets and tons of politician speeches and comments and quotes. And it's just, and we're exactly where we were to begin with. We're in the exact same spot. Nothing has changed after all these months of lobbying and people doing this tug of war for their own self-interest. We're exactly where we were to begin with. We're just maybe a little bit closer to getting to somewhere where things actually do happen. Like somebody breaks away to go make their own rules. Let's say, for example, maybe we're one step closer to some Hail Mary that actually sees something like this passed. I don't know, but I cannot allow myself to get too optimistic about anything coming of any of this, because we just do this every day.
Every day, to the point where I really think Ross Dellinger's as good as it gets, and he's amazing. Remember, I told you even Brandon Marcello called him the incomparable. But all of the college football writers or those involved in sports law, etc. Patrick Crakes, who's one of our guests who does a lot of sports media information with us, Bob Thompson, Jim Williams, said, remember, Ralph, the framers designed the Senate so it wouldn't get things done unless you had real consensus. We don't appear to have anything close to that here. And he's talking about the act. I then sent, Trey Wallace had sent me a direct message, and it was about the Senate has concluded its week, da-da-da-da-da. And then I said, so in other words, there is no true deadline in Washington, D.C. He said, nope, but pay attention to tonight. Here's his latest statement to Outkick and Fox News Sports. From the White House, President Trump's Protect College Sports Act push. At the president's direction, the White House and his College Sports Committee have been working together closely to deliver a permanent solution to challenges plaguing college sports. Okay, that'll be the next level. And by next week, they'll still have the Big Ten and the SEC saying, we don't care. We don't like what is in the language.
Yeah, I don't know what Trump's going to do, and like I'm not super well versed in what he can even do himself, or what he can try to push others in the direction of doing. But yeah, I mean, I that's great. Trey and Amanda Kristovich and those folks, Ross, they can pay attention and then report back to the rest of the people like me who are just not going to hold our breath and worry too much about whatever could or could not happen. Because yeah, I just feel like we've been doing that for like a year now at this point, if not longer in some cases for certain things involving the political side. So yeah, I mean, it would be good for a lot of schools clearly who support this thing to get it done. Cody Campbell's clearly again spent a lot of time and money and whatnot to try and lobby to get this thing across the finish line. And it's just been a long saga that does feel like it's maybe at its end. And now people are going to have to come up with a different idea. But I guess there's still that small chance that this Trump or whoever says something, does something, I don't know, that can somehow reinvigorate this thing, give it new life, and maybe get it across the finish line. I'm just of the opinion that the SEC and the Big Ten never intended to agree to anything that wasn't going to benefit them first and foremost and fully. And so I know when we talked to Amanda Kristovich yesterday, I was asking her, like, did you think they ever really cared about getting this thing passed? And I think her answer was basically like, well, they wouldn't spend all the money and time and effort on their end if they weren't interested. But I think she also made it pretty clear that but the only thing they were really interested in was getting exactly what they wanted. So it's either, yeah, we'll spend all this time, this money, this lobbying, this effort, whatever, to get exactly what we want. But any version that's not exactly what we want, we're going to boycott and we're not going to be a part of, which is where we are right now. They don't like this version. They don't like being capped or handicapped in any way, shape, or form, whether it's realignment or whether it's the money that can be doled out or the money that can be made. And so I don't blame them for that because they're looking out for themselves, and that's America. Like in so many ways, they're worried about maintaining their spot and not giving up this ground that they've created for themselves over decades, just simply to make everybody else happy. And that's totally understandable. You wouldn't expect Apple to cut off its knees to make sure that some up and coming computer company is going to make the same money as them, right? No, of course not. They wouldn't do that. So I don't blame the SEC and the Big Ten for not being keen on that. But I just don't think they have any interest in compromise either. I think it's their way or the highway. And this is clearly not their way. And so I don't know what can happen that's going to sway their vote in the direction of going, yeah, you know what, let's get on board with this thing now. Outside of just going, you know what, we're going to give you everything that you asked for, and we're going to cave to every demand, and you have everything you want and more. You get all of the protections without giving up absolutely anything for it, which is what they want. And so, yeah, I just think we're spinning our wheels in the mud right now.
Yeah, I do too. Honestly, there's a part of me that really, it's kind of like the house settlement. Just let me know when it's over. But we will, of course, try to keep you up to date as it goes on for God knows how much longer.
I mean, it's something that you have to talk about if
Well,
you cover
it's
the
a huge
sport,
deal,
but it's
yeah.
also like at some point, you know, it's not that interesting to garner 10 days in a row of talking about it when the same story is being said every time of like, well, the SEC doesn't like this or the Big Ten doesn't like this and the Big 12's for it and the ACC's for it and everybody else is for it, but they don't want to do it. And okay, then it's Tuesday. Well, Big Ten, SEC still don't want to do this thing, and there's lobbying and there's going back and forth, and here's Cody Campbell to say something, here's Trump to say something, here's here's Ted Cruz to say something. It's Wednesday, SEC and Big Ten still on board there, and so we've just been doing that now for what feels like a couple of months, and we've gotten nowhere different. Like nothing at all has changed. We're in the same exact spot we were like 2 months ago. Maybe the can's been kicked like a couple of steps farther down the road, but it doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to actually crossing the finish line. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways I guess this can go. I think when we were talking to Amanda as well yesterday, I brought up like the idea of the SEC and the Big Ten breaking away to make their own legislation. If you can't make this legislation on your own or as a whole with all these politicians involved, you mean to tell me you're going to go off by yourself and do it on your own and get what you want exactly? And she seemed to feel like that's probably not just a slam dunk, which is what, yeah, I've been of the opinion of the entire time. Like, I just don't get how you're going to pivot. And now because it's just you two, suddenly everything's going to get voted through and passed and all that. So maybe that's bluffing on their part. Or maybe they have some reason to believe that it'll be easier to do on their own because you don't have to involve everybody else. But yeah, I think you're going to have to start looking at some contingency plans for sure because this thing is it's just sitting exactly where it's been sitting for a while.
All right. So, yeah, it's numbing is a word that I've used before on some of these things before. Now, if you're a UT football or Houston football fan, I'm about to start a story that you're like, okay, what does that have to do with us? Taysom Hill, the Swift Army knife or whatever he might be.
How about Swiss Army knife?
How about the Swish?
Yeah, how about sure, whatever world you live in.
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
He has announced that he's going to retire from the NFL. He's been in New Orleans. Here's the statement from him, the image from him. A phenomenal player, such a unique player. And then at the last part of it, I'm still working through what comes next, but I couldn't move forward without taking the time to say thank you, New Orleans. You will always hold a special place in our hearts, talking about his family, and we will always be cheering you on. He was tremendous. I just love watching him play. Seemed like he played every single down with even more energy than you could imagine. What I think about, there he is running off the field. What I think about him and Taysom Hill was he was a fantastic player at BYU. In 2013, against Texas, he was 9 of 26 passing, 1 interception, 129 yards. He's a quarterback. He then ran for over 250 yards in that game, 3 touchdowns, and averaged 15.2 yards a touch. I'll never forget, I'm like, UT's defense could not stop him. In 2014, he ran for 99 yards and 3 touchdowns against UT. But if you thought UT was the one that he owned the most against Houston, he ran for 128 yards and threw for 417 yards and 4 touchdowns against Houston in 2013. And then followed up the next year, he had 360 yards of total offense, 200 yards passing, and 160 yards rushing. He just kind of beat the hell out of those 2 programs in back-to-back years. And I just love the way he played. Phenomenal. He's a really cool fantasy football league player if you were an NFL guy, because he could give you some extra points that perhaps you weren't expecting.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a factor he was in fantasy. I'd never really played much when he was factored into it. I haven't played fantasy for years. So I'm trying to think if I ever even, when I did dabble in it, come across Taysom Hill. But yeah, as a Swiss Army knife type of guy, I'm sure there were some weeks where he was pretty potent for you. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think so much about the Saints, even though he had a nice long career in the NFL. I think about the Texas games and just how he was the talk of the whole college football world there for those couple of nights when they played Texas. And I remember the Houston performances to a lesser extent. I'm sure Houston fans remember them vividly, but he was a bad dude. I mean, he was a great college football player and a pretty damn solid NFL player to hang around as long as he did and to be as multiple talented or such a multiple threat as he was, where you could do a lot of different things with him. Very unique, very flexible, and just very much a guy who was never like the superstar, but he was like still must-watch TV sometimes. And certainly those games against the Longhorns, probably the most much watch he ever was, because like everybody I vaguely remember Twitter back then. I mean, it was around for sure, but in its early infancy of kind of exploding into popularity around that time. And I remember, just Taysom Hill had to have been trending number one on Twitter those nights they played Texas, because it was just incredible watching him carve up UT and them have absolutely no answer for him whatsoever. And we had respect for BYU. BYU is pretty good, but not supposed to beat Texas necessarily, much less beat them twice, much less beat them the way that they beat them, with this guy kind of almost single-handedly destroying them and having like a one-man, one-night Heisman campaign. Like those performances were legendary. Anybody watching back then, I think you start putting your list together of like most memorable nights or performances or whatever. I don't think there will be many ballots that don't have Taysom Hill versus Texas probably somewhere on there if you're doing a 2010s list. So, good luck to him in his post-football playing career. I'm sure it's really hard to say goodbye, but he's been at it a really long time and found a lot of success, and a very unique player. And it was a lot of fun to watch. So good for him.
He was on Mac Brown's last UT team in 2013 that went 8-5. And then the next year when Charlie Strong, that was a 6-7 team for UT. But I'll never forget the game. I think the one where he went nuts was in Provo. But he did run through them and over them, along with passing for 400-plus yards against Houston in the same year.
No, he ran for like 250 yards in Austin.
No, it was two. I said the number. I can't remember.
Provo. No, it was in Austin in 2013, 259, second most in BYU history, 3 TDs.
Yep.
2014 in Provo, they won 41-7, and he had the big hurdle highlight, and had some more passing stats in that game. But no, he was a monster, and I vividly remember watching that game and just was waiting for the bottom to drop out. And those weren't the best Texas teams, but that didn't mean they weren't still promoted that way, especially early on in the season. This wasn't like week 12 and it's like, oh well, Texas is 7-4. Let's see if they can beat BYU. It's like, no, there's still some hope, at least early on in the year, and BYU let you know that there was a disturbance in the force, and this wasn't quite the Texas teams that you were hoping for, because you weren't anticipating that BYU and this quarterback was just going to come in here and or be at his place, regardless of location, and just run it all over you, and in some cases throw it all over you as well. So those were some pretty legendary efforts. Taysom Hill versus Texas that I think a lot of people watching that time period of football, like I said earlier, will definitely remember for a long time.
He is a fantasy football. It depends on what kind of league you were in.
That's what I was saying.
He could give you something when they had that tweener type position, whatever you called it.
Well, they do still, but
but also he could have 3 snaps in one game.
I was going to say, I don't think he consistently was like every week producing, whereas you put a wide receiver in the flex position, I think is what you're trying to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were some weeks, if you were lucky enough to have him in the lineup, where he was great. And then I think there's probably a lot of weeks where he maybe didn't give you a ton of points compared to putting another receiver or another running back in there. But I don't know. I won't pretend to have followed his career under a microscope once he got to the NFL. What stands out to me will always be the Texas performances, the Houston games, and just the fact that, he was a badass and a lot of fun to watch.
The game where he ran for 250 against Texas was in Provo.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah,
I looked earlier. I said Austin.
That's okay.
All
It doesn't matter. I mean, it was a huge game. Paxton, UT fan, he was a junkyard dog.
Yeah, he was he wasn't like a guy who's going to go get drafted in the first round at quarterback. He was just a great football player. And that was what was so fun about him, was he was just a really good football player and a great college football player. Yeah. And so, okay, well, I got that wrong.
That's
I thought
okay.
that was in Austin or in Provo.
I know a lot of guys that
Or
saw
Austin.
this story. First of all, there's always been something about Molly McGrath that I remember. Yeah, she's very good at what she does as a sideline reporter. She is ESPN announcing that she is now moving from being a longtime sideline reporter from on ESPN for college football. Molly McGrath is now leaving, staying at ESPN, but now moving to the sideline job covering the NFL. A lot of the responses from college football fans was, no. I thought what she was so good at was that sometimes, and I struggle with this at times, and is that her voice, no matter the moment, post-game or not, winning coach or not, she was good at keeping the same level. Or she'd have to raise it if the noise got too bad. She's just great, very good at what she does. I know a lot of college football fans love what she does, and she's now going to be a sideline reporter for the NFL, covering the NFL.
Okay, well, yeah, good for Molly McGrath. Yeah, she's very talented. I don't think I'll probably notice too much because there will be somebody else that jumps into that spot and probably does well. Like these spots, announcers in the press box or sideline reporters, they turn over every once in a while. So yeah, I think she's done a lot of good and spent a lot of time covering this sport of college football that we love. And so time to go do something new. And I'm sure she'll be great at the NFL level. I think she's dabbled around with pretty much everything at this point. So yeah, I think that'll be an easy move. And just more room for the next young face or the next big name to jump in and make their mark and follow in the footsteps of her and Aaron Andrews and everybody else that has come before in similar roles. So yeah, she's really good. Congrats to her, and we'll see who kind of steps in to fill those shoes.
You know what college she went to? Anybody? Let's see if the chat room knows his answer. Anybody know? Real quickly.
Never have even thought of the question in my life.
I didn't either. I saw this in an article from earlier today with some fans that love her work. Boston College.
Okay.
She went to Boston College. She was a part of Fox Sports for like 3 or 4 years, and now since 2016 has been with ESPN.
Yeah, wouldn't have guessed Boston College probably for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
would have just been naming names and I had no inclination of where she even might be from. Honestly, I've never thought about it whatsoever. Where's she even from? She's from
Molly
San
McGrath
Francisco.
was San Francisco,
Okay.
California. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's been around from growing up West Coast, going to school East Coast, and then obviously traveling the world or traveling the country doing the college football thing. So yeah, she'll be great in the NFL. She'll fit right in. I think she's done stuff in the NFL before, as far as I can remember. But I think she's good. So good for her.
I'll miss her because of how calm. Someone mentions that she's so calm under like the most exciting moment or whatever. Her voice her voice did not get too high because everything around her she was got too high. Cheerleading captain, that didn't surprise me. She's fantastic at what she does. Good for her. So that's Molly McGrath.
Yeah, she's got a fun personality, and I could see where you're coming from with this very even keel. Certainly didn't seem to get too shaken by the moments, whatever they might be. And so that's interesting. And wonder who the next names that we're going to be knowing here pretty soon are. The next round of college grads who've worked their way up to become the next big names are. I guess we'll see that soon with these upcoming broadcasts. But I want to go back to the BYU Texas thing. So after I got corrected there, I went and Googled it. And of course, now AI normally pops up. And AI even said like exactly what I said originally, that it was in the wrong place. But I was Googling something. I was doing a video on the Big Ten. I was just kind of recapping Media Days, this new very short series I'm going to do where I spend like 10, 15 minutes looking at the most interesting things about each conference coming out of Media Days. Not like a Media Day deep dive, like, well, he said this and he said, it's like, no, it's like, what's the most interesting story on the field? What's the most interesting story off the field? Like, what am I most excited about? And who's the champion at the end of it? And I Googled last night to double check myself. I was Googling coaching changes in the Big Ten and AI, which I don't go off of face value for this very reason. You cannot trust it right away.
Who did they say?
Is because this BYU thing was obviously wrong when I went to double check it. But AI actually I actually took a picture of it, but I don't know where I saved it, unfortunately. But it tried to tell me that like Kyle Whittingham was still at Utah and that like 3 other like massive things that are very clearly true now were not true. So like just another reminder, like don't take everything at face value when you Google these days. You got to dive a little deeper because it gets stuff wrong a lot. Like obvious things. Like I had to go, no, Kyle Whittingham is at Michigan. You are wrong about this. And then he goes, oh, well, thank you for the correction. You're absolutely right after a little this or that. And so, yeah, I know a lot of people just take it at face value, and you cannot do that whatsoever.
You taught me that.
Yes,
because I'm gullible as hell. I get
because people just Google it and they think it's true, and it's like normally when you Google to the old ways, it was results, but now it's the AI version, and it's not.
No, it's not because and I kind of didn't even know when that flipped over, and there's been a couple of times when I'm like, oh, so now I Google and I see AI, and I realize it because it's got this formula, kind of how it sets up. I get hit every once in a while. I'm the one that was that Ian Rappaport has a fake Twitter account, or he doesn't, but somebody does, and then you got to be careful. But yeah, with the AI, you got to be careful. It does really well, but it's not all fact, and I get hit with that.
No, when I saw what it spit back to me last night, which was like a very minor thing to double check, and it was just, it could not have been more wrong on what was factual. And I was like almost like taken aback, like, oh wow, like this is like really wrong. Like this is telling me that all of these coaches aren't where these coaches currently are. So yeah, just weird how that works. I guess they're still ironing out the kinks, but was surprised at just how wrong that can still be sometimes.
All right.
Anyways,
but yeah, it is interesting. It's crazy that you can Google something and you actually just get like.
Well, then you follow up and you go, "That's not right," and it'll respond to you and go, "You know what? After looking again, it isn't right." And thanks for the correction. I'm like, but I'm asking you. Like that's the whole point. Is I'm asking you, and that's that's stick to humans. Stick to humans when it comes to things for the most part.
Yeah, no, you need to. You're right. And I'll go do something this weekend where I'm maybe Google something and realize, oh, and then it's wrong. You got to be careful with that. All right. So here's what we do have. We had a guest that we were supposed to get, but there was a family issue. It's not like a bad deal, but not able to join us. So we have gone the last couple of days almost right up until 6, and that's okay. What I'd like to know, and I just asked you the question in the chat room, we're going to take a break, and we have the wheel, we have trivia, and we also have the poll results. But I want to do this. If we take this break, we are going to take this break and come back. Either way, we go straight to the wheel or not. But if you want to ask in the chat, let's say we'll take 4 or 5 questions, a sports question. Preferably a college football or some sort of sports question. You ask it, tag my name. We'll come back and read your questions. We'll spend just a little bit of time with it, not a lot, so we can close it out with you being involved. We want you to be involved, and we appreciate your time. So get on, tag my name. Craig and I will answer the questions when we come back. And by the way, Cheyenne has been running the mothership. Rez, of course, is the Michelangelo, the Picasso, the artist. Cheyenne has been doing an incredible job today running this show. This is 365 Sports, and you see the logo up in the top right corner of the screen over my left shoulder. Tarleton State University. You get more than an education. You get a purpose that transforms your life and inspires future generations. Through hands-on learning, real-world research, students graduate ready to learn, lead, serve, and make an impact. Built on access, opportunity, and affordability, Tarleton State University gives every Texan the tools to succeed. That's their mascot, by the way. You are made for more. You are made to be a Texan. Learn more at tarleton.edu. Back with your questions in a moment.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
At Tarleton State University, we believe your education should fit your journey. Whether you're starting college or advancing your career, Tarleton State opens the door to what's next. A student-focused education is never far away. Don't change your life to earn a degree. Earn a degree to change your life. Because wherever life takes you, Tarleton State goes with you. Become a Texan today. Visit tarleton.edu.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoke Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, a couple of questions we'll answer. Thank you for your time. The Smoke Show, 365 Sports and YouTube. Every weekday, most every weekday at 3 o'clock. Paxton wanted to know, Craig, this is even before I asked him to, or anyone to send a question. Would you watch Taysom Hill versus Jake Paul? Jake Paul.
I don't know if Jake Paul's even going to fight anymore, but yeah, I'd watch that out of just curiosity because of the college football element. I'm kind of checked out on Jake Paul versus washed up former whatever, fill in the blank. But Taysom Hill, I feel like he would definitely bring it. He would bring the fight. So, I'd be up for that, free on Netflix. Well, free despite your monthly subscription, of course. But, hell, I think I'd be more interested in that than watching him fight Floyd Mayweather again. That's for damn sure. Or some of the other arrangements we've heard floated out there before. So, that was an interesting situation with him getting his jaw broke. I think that was a wake-up call about, like, you can take this a certain level of, like, fighting washed up people or MMA guys turn boxers and you eliminate, like, a big part of their game and do all that. But, like, you get in there, even if a guy's not quite what he was, he's still a real boxer. And reality came calling really quick, and your jaw learned a lesson that everybody was waiting on you to learn.
How tall do you think he is, Jake Paul?
Jake Paul's probably like 6 foot or so. I don't know.
For some reason, I thought he was like 6'4", he's 6'1".
Okay.
Taysom Hill 6'2". So one of the things I was thinking about if they fought was that if Paul's like tall. You can kind of sometimes neuter literally a guy that can get close to you, but no, that would be interesting.
I mean, he's a good athlete. I think he's probably getting a lot of help because of the money that he has, that he's able to be an athlete on a level that he otherwise wouldn't be, right? I mean, the amount of training and all of that he's able to buy. But I mean, he's not completely untalented. He's not devoid of talent by any means. His bank account definitely tells you that. But like athletically, Logan Paul, his brother's actually a very good athlete. I mean, was a pretty good high school football player and is actually a pretty dang good wrestler.
Logan's 6'2". I thought he was taller.
Logan's a little taller. Yeah. Logan's, he's a pretty good athlete actually. So yeah, Taysom Hill versus Jake Paul. I don't know how much you'd have BYU folks watching. So that would give you a big audience. That's for sure.
Here's another question from Bracket Cat. Congrats on the podcast rating. Do either of you think that college sports will ever calm down? As in down as to get a same again, always going to be some sort of chaos from now on.
I just think that it probably will calm down at some point. I just don't know what that looks like. I don't think it resembles what we knew it to be before, and not even just the paying players thing. I just feel like to get it to where it needs to be, there's going to have to be some level of compromises that a lot of people that need to be a part of the compromise don't clearly want to be a part of right now, because they have their own self-interest. So, I think if Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti just took one for the team and said, all right, we'll even this playing field just for the sake of all of college football, then I think we could get to a place that's as close as we could hope for, given all the things that are now clearly illegal to do, like not paying players and all that. I think we could get to a good spot, but it would also be to the detriment of their league. So that's why it won't happen. So I think we will get to a place eventually one day where there's clear-cut rules and things are situated. I just don't know if that looks like college football when it gets to that point, or if it looks like some bastardized version in between that and the NFL.
I don't know if we'll ever have it because the legal challenges, even if you have anything signed or not, just seemed like the House settlement was going to calm everything down. It even got worse.
And
now this.
The point of the SEC and the Big Ten to some degree is it's not just maintaining the status quo that they're striving for by not agreeing to everything, and it's not just not wanting to even the playing field. Like there's also still like I think there's people rushing to sign something and it doesn't necessarily answer everything, and so they're like, well, wait a second, like we could still get sued without this, and we could still end up in court every other day without this. And so I think that's a fair complaint and a fair reason to not just go trudge forward just for the sake of symbolism. Basically, if it's not what it's supposed to be, then why go through with it? So if this Protect College Sports Act isn't going to end every lawsuit or every eligibility question or whatever, then it needs to be tweaked to where it does, because we're still not eliminating all of the major problems. So I think they have a very valid stance from that viewpoint. But I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what it's going to take.
Not everything being challenged, so you got to write it where it can't be.
Well, that's going to take the schools to make some concessions they clearly don't want to make.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
General Ursus.
Well, I'll say this: we'll never have it where we had it. Like that.
No,
those days are
the
over.
days of when the days when you might have Herschel Walker test the waters of whether he can go and be drafted after his freshman year. That was amazing, and then join the USFL. That was like maybe Georgia, Oklahoma. That was in the 80s when they went to Congress to test the value of who should own the rights to TV appearances. And that, of course, set the tone for where we are even now. General Ursus, who do you guys think will represent the Big 12 and the ACC this year in the college football playoff?
I mean, it's a boring answer, but I think Texas, actually in my Big 12 predictions, I had BYU beating Texas Tech in the championship game, but Texas Tech still getting in. So, I think BYU and Tech out of the Big 12, and I think Miami out of the ACC. And in the little ACC video I did yesterday, I had them beating SMU. So that's where I'm going.
All right, here's from Bracket Cat, and I I don't know how you could choose anyone but BYU or Tech in the Big 12. And like Craig said, he got both of them in Miami and the ACC. Bracket cat. And you can't say Texas Tech and Miami. That's just lazy.
No, I mean, it is. And that's why I was like, not even like just saying like, yeah, that's who I had. It's kind of boring. But I mean, sure, Louisville, SMU, somebody sneaky. I mean, hell, it was Duke and Virginia last year, duking it out, right? But they fixed the tiebreakers in theory to where the best teams will be playing for it. And I just don't see any reason to believe why Miami won't be the best team in the ACC.
Yeah.
You have every reason to believe they will be. But yeah, it's the boring answer, but I think it's also the right answer.
Yeah. You don't want to just give you something that's not going to be true. I don't want to be wrong because it might be boring.
Well, let's face it. If it's not BYU and Texas Tech in the Big 12 final, then one of those two teams has had a massively disappointing season for one reason or another, whether that's injuries or just not being quite what they should be. But there's no reason why neither one of those teams should be as good as they expect to be outside of the wild cards like injuries that you can't account for right now. So I know there's a lot of love for Utah, Arizona, and Houston as well. And, hey, maybe ASU or somebody pops into that. But going on what we do know, the answers are boring because you've been hearing the same ones for a while now. But, I mean, they're boring and obvious for a reason.
Here's the thing. It wasn't boring for a long time when you picked OU to win the Big 12, even though there were some teams that went in there and interrupted them along the way.
I think it got boring for Oklahoma.
No,
I think it got boring for Texas real quick. But no, I mean, you're right. It would be more fun to say it's going to be Arizona and West Virginia in the Big 12. But like, I would never bet that because I don't think I think there's like a slightly above zero chance of that matchup particularly happening.
And we're not going to do something like throw something out there just so we can get like clicks and views. We're not going to do that. Now, Canthony 37. David Smoak. What would David Smoak today tell David Smoak 40 years ago about college football, and you wouldn't believe it? Ah, man.
Indiana won a national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. That Nebraska would end up being the opposite of what they were for 35 or 40 years. It would be, honestly, 40 years ago, takes me back into the 85 or 86, that college football athletes would start having, would be getting paid. It was like there were two things. Like I said, you couldn't play player. You couldn't, didn't mean he was right, but you couldn't pay players. And it's like you didn't want to get a call from the NCAA about any of that. The recruiting violations, it's right before the SMU stuff started to really go down. But it would have to be that college football players were going to be paid and heavily. That doesn't mean I didn't think they should be at the time, but that would be the first thing. And then, of course, all the conference realignment. There was a smidgen of that, but all the conference realignment, I just can't even imagine it would be shredded like it is today.
Yeah, but even with conference realignment, that's always been a part of college football.
It has been.
I mean, it just seems like it's refreshed because so much of it happened a couple years ago, but the SEC wasn't always built the way that it was from day one. The Big 12 didn't exist 40 years ago. It was various other conferences like the Big 8 and the Southwest Conference. So the Big 12 was nothing. The ACC's had its variations. So I think realignment's always been a part of it. But, yeah, you'd still be surprised. Like maybe did UCF exist 40 years ago? If you would have been told, like, hey, UCF's going to be in the Big 12, but the Big 12 didn't exist, you would have had no idea. So, yeah, that probably wouldn't even have been anywhere on your radar. But, yeah, the thing that was so taboo was players getting paid, and you actually did fear the NCAA. So now to be in an era where, like, hey, guess what? Players are going to get paid. They can do commercials. They can basically get whatever they want. There's sort of a cap, but not really a cap. And no one's scared of the NCAA. I think that would have been surprising, maybe. No one being scared of the NCAA?
No, it's like there's two people you don't want to hear from. The IRS and the NCAA, and now the IRS still has that clout. The NCAA has lost all of it.
Yeah, everybody just is like, all right, doofus, like, go ahead, try
BYU,
something.
Okay, here, about realignment, you brought this up, and I know we can't. 1978, there was the Big 8 in the Southwest Conference. We know that. The Pac-10,
yeah, you
had the Southwest Conference, which everyone knows the original part of that before they eventually partially merged with the Big 8. The WAC had BYU, Utah, in that same conference. And of course, that's changed quite a bit. And there were like 20 some schools that were independents. Independents back then were Florida State, Notre Dame, Penn State, Pittsburgh, South Carolina, Rutgers, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Louisville, Memphis, Miami, and Cincinnati, Boston College, all the academies, and I may have missed a few that were all independent, big-name programs at the time in 1978. Boy, has that changed now.
Yeah, I mean, back then, SEC didn't have South Carolina wasn't a part of the mix, and various other teams were not quite in the league yet. So, yeah, there's a lot of different variations that conferences have taken on, and some have died, and some have merged, and some have hung around. The Big 12 seemingly so, and the Pac-12 now even hanging around. But, yeah, it's bittersweet talking about that. I mean, conference realignment's always existed. So, yeah, it's not like that was all new when Texas and Oklahoma jumped, or obviously before that, A&M, Missouri, Colorado, all the Big 12 schools that were leaving over the last 15, 20 years. It didn't start with the Big 12. It was going on long before that. But so, yeah, I don't think that would have been a shocker to say, like, hey, Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. Like, that wouldn't have been super shocking to somebody back then. And it also wouldn't have probably seemed like as big of a deal either, because the SEC wasn't like the SEC now where you're like, oh, my God. It would have just made sense geographically, like things used to. And so, yeah, I don't know that would have been a huge shocker, any of the realignment stuff compared to the players getting paid and there just being like no end in sight on how much they can get paid or the reaches to what schools are going to try to make sure they get paid. I think that would have been really shocking to a lot of people.
Oh, I remember when I was doing radio in Tyler, how many times we would have this discussion with, should players get paid? And I bet 90% of everybody that would call in or whatever would say no, they're getting an education. Boy, things have changed. Canty, also thanks to Cat Paxton for questions. Let me see if there's one or two more, then we go straight to the wheel. Let's see here. I think that's it. Oh, do you think the Big 12 should have taken Memphis and all the money they were offered with FedEx?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that was a ton of money. And I just think that as much as that money was, when you start to spread it out, so my answer is no, I don't think they should have, because I think it would have been a temporary fix for a longer lasting problem that still is not a solution to your constant chase for money. It would have been a nice fat nest egg that schools would have ran through in no time and then been right back where they were, and then now sharing yet another mouth in the conference. And when you look at the new schools, the newer schools, so UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and BYU, they feel like they hit the freaking lottery.
Yep.
Like they're making so much more money than they were making before compared to their previous TV deals. So they had to wait for a second and then got their full share just in the last year, right? So they're just now getting that full share, and it's like 2-3 times more than they were ever making before, if not more than that. But what it's done in the meantime is it's actually cut into some of the other schools that you haven't seen quite the jump that you would like to see, to where you're now paying these other schools their full shares and you're making more on top. It's like, no, you're actually getting a little shave at Iowa State or at TCU or at Baylor to help accommodate these new schools. And remember, you brought the Pac schools in because they were power league teams. Part of the enticement was they came in full right away. So in a very short amount of time, yeah, you lost Texas and Oklahoma, and with them you lost a ton of money. And then you brought on 8 schools in like 3 years, and then have divvied out their payments to where now everybody's full-time, but the money's gone down. It hasn't gone way up. And so for, UCF, they're loving life, man. They're getting a ton of money compared to what they had. And I can't wait to see how they go about using that. But for Texas Tech, maybe they're not a good example because they've got money in other areas. But for the other schools, like Iowa State, for example, then, this isn't the most fun thing. So I think adding another mouth to that, as much as like that initial payment would have helped out for a year or two, you're going to have even less than you're getting now. And I think that would have been that's the problem with the theories of like, well, let's add Oregon State and Washington State and let's add so-and-so. And so it's like, okay, well, what TV deal are you getting? Because you got to have the money to.
SMU hit the lottery, but not get anything out of it other than they really are.
Well, they got a place in the playoff that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten by being in the ACC. But yeah, they're paying their way and they can afford to do that. But yeah, I say no on the Memphis thing until you get a bigger TV deal. And then if you get a bigger TV deal and you can help add on to what your existing schools are getting and also pay somebody else, then yeah, bring on Memphis. And that would make a lot of sense. But I just think it was
a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I just think that's what the long-term answer was like, yeah, this will be good in the short term, but this will really hurt us probably in the long term.
We need Metal Memphis FedEx Mooish back in the chat. Metal was pretty good. He got a little disturbed by some of the things we may have said about whether Memphis should come in or not. Like back with the guy that was out of a UCF fan that kind of went nuts. Here is how we fit. Thank you, by the way, for the questions. Really, really do appreciate it.
Memphis is I want to talk about it. Memphis is going to be one of those teams that if the ACC gets ravaged, then I think they're in line to be one of those teams that gets a look at that league. USF, I know, is in that same mix as well. So yeah, just better have your plans all lined up and be ready to go here in a couple of years if in fact there is that call on the bat phone of an opportunity. And it sure seems like USF's been doing everything it can to get itself in order. And so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't think that deal would have been long-term very good.
Kim, I can't repeat what you put in the chat about Memphis. I can't, but you made your point. Now we had one super chat, I believe. Is that right, Rez? And here is the super chat. And we get it up on the screen from S. Michael DeHart. As a Mountaineer fan, I love my 365 Sports, especially the Smoke Show. $16 is in recognition of 365 Sports being ranked 16th in the nation. Fantastic show that Smokey and the Dragon Craig put on every single week. Thank you very much, S. Michael DeHart. You are a dear friend, no question, and loyal as hell viewer. We appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you, S. Michael. Very generous as always and very supportive as always. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Let's spin the wheel.
All right. Which pro sports team needs a logo facelift the most?
Oh, my God. I don't know if I could even think. I could probably, if I saw the football helmets. You got an idea?
No, not really. I mean, I immediately thought of the Washington Commanders because they're just constantly being talked about, changing back, which is probably unlikely, or just changing what they have changed already. The W's fine, but I've seen people point out the flaws in it. Yeah, I would need to see like a map of logos to really have a good idea. There's some NBA logos I'm not necessarily a huge fan of. So I just popped this open. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing pops to mind immediately as far as a logo that needs a major upgrade. So yeah, boring non-answer from me. The Cleveland Browns, I just think the orange helmet is just kind of a boring ass logo, but it's very fitting for them and it works for them. So I don't know. I don't think you slap a logo on the side of that helmet and suddenly it's a much better logo. I don't know what you could really do for the Browns other than the orange helmet, really. But everybody else is pretty much modernized at this point.
I don't keep track really of the logos. For some reason, the Tennessee Titans.
Well, they just changed it.
Yeah, I know. And there you go. So I don't really have anything in particular that somebody they got to change. I just don't. But thank you, Andrew, for a really good question. And you in the chat, your thoughts about it, maybe you could tell us on Monday too. All right, here we are with two quiz questions. Try to go 2-0 today. We did yesterday. And the first quiz question. Known for its cozy dimensions, Brooklyn's Ebbets Field featured one of baseball's most famous scoreboard ads. What prize did Abe Stark offer any batter who hit his right field sign on the fly?
The first thing that jumps out to me is a custom tailored suit, and I don't know why. Other than that, just seems like it would make sense as a nice prize back then. But year free steaks and brand new Chevy. Also, I feel like free top hat and cane would be the answer that seems the most off the wall. But maybe that's why it is the answer. I don't know.
I'm seeing if the chat's even responded, but this is the time of the day when for some reason my chat gets frozen up a little bit. I'm going to say custom tailored suit.
All right. Yeah. That seems like it would make a lot of sense.
Yep.
Abe Stark's famous banner at the bottom of the right field scoreboard famously declared hit sign win suit, while Dodgers right fielder Carl Furillo made a habit of playing the wall so well that hits were rare. Stark honored every player who pulled off the feet. The ad brought Stark so much local fame that he was eventually elected Brooklyn Borough president. So, okay, yeah, that seems like something you'd have seen back in the black and white days of, yeah, a free suit would definitely have been a big deal to win that. And it probably still would be if you did that, if you were a baseball player, got a free suit. But yeah, I think that definitely fits that time period. So that made a lot of sense.
1-0. So that means we can go 2-0. 54% of you got it right. Quiz number 2. On July 31st of this date, 2012, Michael Phelps won his 19th Olympic medal by anchoring the U.S. 4x200 meter freestyle relay to gold in London. Whose longtime record of 18 medals did he break? And I immediately, Mark Spitz's name jumps out at me, but all these others that might have been in other sports that I'm not so sure about. But Mark Spitz is whose name immediately popped out to me.
Yeah, I'm not even sure outside of the logos or the, I guess, icons that Andrew's using there, what sports these others are even a part of. They don't really ring a bell for me. So, yeah, Mark Spitz is the only one I even recognize. I know he won a lot of gold medals and heard a lot about him and Phelps's pursuit. So, yeah, let's go Mark Spitz.
All right, so Larissa, what do you think that sport is? Is that tumbling? Is that like gymnastics?
Well, tumbling's not an Olympic sport, I don't think. So, yeah, I think it's gymnastics, which is tumbling.
Pavo near me.
He's running.
Okay, and then Eduardo looks like he's doing tennis or maybe something else, racket. I think this is a trick question. I think Mark Spitz. I said Mark Spitz. I gotta go with Mark Spitz. But the girl that's doing, the woman who's doing gymnastics, I think that could be close. But let's go with Mark Spitz. I feel bad about this one.
As you should, because you were incorrect, or we were incorrect.
I hate her. Soviet gymnast Larissa Latina set Olympic standard over a less than 10-year period, 50s and 60s, 18 career medals, and a record that stood for nearly half a century until Michael Phelps claimed his 19th in London. He later finished with 28 medals, 23 gold, before retiring after the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games. All right.
I mean, I feel like I remember names that come across, especially a name like that would have probably come across pretty frequently while Phelps was chasing the record. And I have no memory of Larissa Latina at all whatsoever. I feel like that's the first time I've ever heard that name, which is probably clearly not. But yeah, good question by Andrew, because yeah, I had no idea. And that's a lot of medals for, I guess the different events is how she was able to compile that many medals.
Yeah, I was going to look her up.
Had to be that, because you weren't playing.
Well,
you weren't
you
doing
can win 5 or 6 in the
Olympics. That's
Olympics.
what I mean. Yeah, it's had to be how she did it. There's no other way she could have done it.
Let me see what it says here about her. Who won the most gold medals at the Olympics? Michael Spitz. Okay. 18 total, including 9 golds in the all-around, floor exercises, horse vault, team all-around, and then also won others with the other floor exercises where she did well, but she won a lot of different gymnastics medals in her career. Okay. All right, let's get to the poll results from our viewership, you. And we have 2 of those. How will the Canes, Miami, finish the 2026 regular season? More people said 11+ wins, 47% than otherwise.
Yeah, I think I'm in line with probably it's definitely one of the top 2. Anything else would be massively disappointing, no matter how optimistic or pessimistic you could be. So yeah, it has to be 10 or more. This season went sideways for some reason or another. And looking at their schedule, I mean, outside of Notre Dame, they're going to be favored in every single game. So they do go to South Bend in the start of November. But beyond that, I mean, yeah, Clemson on the road could be tough. Pitt maybe gives them a run, but Duke, I'm not seeing any game where you go, they won't be favored outside of at Notre Dame. So, 11 wins. I can see why there's a lot of people riding that with as good as you expect Miami to be, and with what looks like it could be a pretty manageable road through the regular season for them.
All right, there we go. 11-plus wins they are, as you mentioned, other than Notre Dame, and that'd be a hell of a game. All right, second one, poll question is, which classic barroom party game is your top pick? I would have thought darts might be a little bit higher up the list, but billiards and pool, they're everywhere. 68%. That's higher than I thought. I thought darts would be at least like maybe twice that number, but there you are. Shuffleboard, I've never really been a fan of that. I do like ping pong, but haven't played much of late. So billiards dominates with the 84 votes.
Yeah, I like shuffleboard. Had a lot of fun playing with my late grandmother back in the day. She was a feisty competitor and had a lot of fun in my younger years playing with her and all my relatives at various places. But yeah, I like all these. I'm not the biggest ping pong fan. Like of the four, if it said like get rid of one of them, I think that'd be the one I'd get rid of. Actually, I like the top three the most. And I'd probably go with billiards, pool as the top choice. And I think I'd go in this exact order, actually. I'd go pool, darts, shuffleboard, and then ping pong. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because ping pong table tennis to me is not like a barroom game. You might see that sometimes. I don't see it very often.
It's
Although
more of
ping pong would be my favorite of those four.
Ping pong's more of an alcohol game at your college buddy's house,
or a fraternity house, or
like that's more of ping pong, not so much an actual bar. Whereas the other three are both. But love most of these games and have a lot of fun playing them.
All right, thank you, Andrew Valade. Cheyenne, fantastic job today, and Rez right there running the mothership. We appreciate our sponsors, and thank you for being a part of the show whenever you are every weekday at 3:00. We're back Monday at 3. Appreciate your time. Have a great weekend. This with Craig Smoak, David Smoak, the Smoak Show on 365 Sports.
You heard of the new IRA, the Insured Retirement Advantage? It's a strategy for younger high-income earners and small business owners who want to get serious about retirement. The Insured Retirement Advantage can help you build a tax-free income stream for retirement, protect your family's legacy, keep your capital working efficiently, and you don't need ultra-high net worth status to qualify. Call 623-256-6902 or go to NorthstarFundingPartners.com and tell them 365 Sports sent you.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get behind the wheel of an iconic new Dodge Charger RT and score $5,000 in savings. First responders and military members get an extra $500 bonus. Allen Samuels Dodge.
Come by, let's be friends.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights, face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
At Home Place Interiors, we elevate your space with elegance and class. We are the exclusive Sonoma tile dealer in Central Texas, bringing you the best in high-end floor coverings that transform your home with beauty and elegant design. Our white glove service and expert consultations ensure your vision becomes a reality as we take you step by step through the process. Call today to schedule your personal design consultation. Visit HomePlaceInteriorsTX.com. Home Place Interiors, crafting elegance, one room at a time.